Hey, hey, how's everybody doing tonight? We are going to do some live dream interpretation, and it's just me. Anna's truck finally arrived. She's getting her stuff moved in. So it's going to be just moi and you all. So why don't we open up with a word of prayer and then we will get started. We got a lot of people in the waiting room already. People are ready to go and excited, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen. So, see what God will do. Father God, we thank you for this time, for your grace, for your mercy, for your favor. We ask that you would be with us. We thank you for the spirit of revelation, for the spirit of wisdom and discernment. And God, we know that all dreams come from you, that dream interpretation, that all interpretations come from you. Joseph and Daniel both said the interpretations belong to the Lord. And we know that's because dreams belong to you. And so we thank you, God, for this encrypted form of communication. We ask that you would give us wisdom and discernment, that you would give the answers that people need tonight. God, that you would speak right into their identity, into their destiny, into their families, God, into the nation, into things that are happening in the world, and that you would share with us your thoughts. We thank you and we praise you for this time and your Holy Spirit being with us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I'm going to jump right in with Perry. Hey, how are you?
First, welcome to Texas.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So my dream was that I'm just going to go ahead and read it. That I was in a house, and my mom came into my bedroom and had some clothes that she said she made for me. And so I just thought they were so pretty. I just immediately took off my blouse and I put it on. I was wearing a skirt, and the next scene, the kids and I are driving to the movies, and the blouse, it was a two-piece blouse, and it was lace that goes over a in when I woke up I called it a bustier, but it's really a corset, and it was, two pieces. So, and it was baby blue. And then when the kids and I are heading towards the movies, um, I parked the car and I recalled that it was cobblestone, um, on the road, and I was thinking, wow, this looks like Boston. And so if you're familiar with Boston, it's not like Texas. It has its parking lot at the movie theater. You have to park somewhere and walk. So we were heading over there, and when I got off the vehicle, I realized I didn't have any shoes on, and I thought I put on some shoes. I was going to wear these really nice shoes. So I told the kids to go on ahead, and I popped into a store, of which I don't recall any of that. It's just I remember popping out, and I had purchased some like yellow sandals. And then um, I don't recall making it to the movies. I recall that I ended up in front of a house that was all darkened. It was in a dead end street. It wasn't a cul-de-sac. It just the house ended right there. And I'm looking at the house, and I just thought, well, I knew there was nothing behind me. And I just started walking back away from the dead end. And in the next scene, I am in the bathroom and I'm like reading a newspaper. And then the kids start knocking on the bathroom door, and they're like, Mom, hurry up. And I'm like, hey, I can't rush this. I'm in the bathroom. And so finally, I do my thing. I walk out, and my daughter says to me, my oldest, she says, Mom, I was getting impatient, and I was pulling out the truck and I backed into somebody. I had a crash, and I said, oh no, let's go check it out. So we walked to where it is, and the truck is gone, but my mom is there. And it was a super duper fancy, like red, not red car, like uh maroon, not maroon, but blood color. It looked like a dark blood, like a scarlet color. And I said, where's the car? She says, oh, they already picked it up, and we have this one. And I mean, I was like, dropped the, it was so fancy. And I'm thinking, what in the world? And she gave me the keys, and I got in the car. She got in the car. The kids got in the car, and we took off. And that was the dream.
Wow, there's a whole lot there. Just going to hit the broad strokes. The idea that your mom is coming in and giving you a shirt that she made is a mantle that she's passing to you, something that she had a hand in creating. It's something that you take on immediately. So it's not something like an inheritance that is usually taken on after the passing of a loved one. She's right there in your presence. You try it on immediately. You take off what you have on and you put the new thing on. So I feel like there's something that's immediate that is along the lines of either a gifting or a mantle or something that she carries, something that she wears as part of an anointing that she's actually helped develop, right? And because she made the blouse or she made whatever you put on, right? Yeah, so she helped develop it. She obviously, you don't make the material, but you certainly fashion it and sew it and cut it and all of that. So there's something that she helped develop for you to fit into immediately. And then the next part, you were walking on the cobblestone streets. Okay, this is a place that's not it's not like pioneering through the jungle with a machete, but it's an uneven path, right? And you didn't have shoes, and so you needed to get shoes, which means you weren't ready. Shoes represent in Ephesians 6, right? The readiness of the gospel of peace. So it's the idea of being ready or prepared. And when you were in the street, you were wearing what your mom gave you, right? Okay, yeah. So I feel like there's a readiness that needs to take place for you to be able to walk in the anointing and the calling that your mom is gifting you and leaving to you. But again, it's immediate. It's not something that you're waiting for an inheritance or is going to come a long time past. It's going to come right away and you're going to begin to walk in it, but you're going to need new shoes, which means you're going to need a whole new level of readiness to go to the places that he's called you to go. So what was the next part? There was a yellow.
I ended up the front of a dead end house, and then
Okay.
I walked away, and I ended up in the bathroom.
Of that same house or another house?
No, I don't know. It seemed like maybe a porta potty. I have no idea. It was a little strange, but I remember I was like reading the newspaper in there while I'm in the bathroom.
Okay. Well, so the dead end represents a stop to the forward momentum on the path that you were on, which typically it means you have to repent, which means just simply means to think differently. It's not a condemnation thing like a lot of people think it's like stop sinning. No, it just means to, oh, God loves me and he cares about me. That can be repentance for some people if they don't think that way. So you come to a dead end, which is the end of things, and a dead end can be the end of yourself, meaning your flesh, meaning something that you were trying to walk in of your own and you were trying to strive comes to the end and you realize this isn't going to work out. I need to take a different approach or go another way. It's interesting because at that point you go into the bathroom. The bathroom is the place of three things, right? It's the secret place, but it's also the place of purging or letting things go. And it's also the place where people, especially women, tend to look in the mirror. So it's the place of self reflection. So it's a great place for you to go, the secret place, the place of letting go, the place of self reflection, to be able to decide what to do next. Because you were given a mantle or a calling. You went to walk, but the road was uneven. So you had to get more preparation and readiness to walk the path that was before you. The path that was before you comes to this dead end. And so it's the end of striving, the end of walking it out in your own strength. And so you're like, okay, I got to reposition. I got to do things differently. You go into the secret place, the place of self-reflection, and you're like, okay, God, I want you to show me what my path is going to be and where I'm going to go next. And you're reading the newspaper, which means you're getting a download. So there's going to be if you can identify these pieces in your life, what it was that your mom gave you, what the shoes are, that's the preparation, what the thing that you were striving in is, and coming to that dead end. And then you get to the place of figuring this out in the newspaper is really the news. It's the download. And I believe that God has a prophetic word for you about what you're to do next and what that looks like that'll move you forward and kind of fit all the pieces together. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for being here with us tonight. We appreciate it. Bye. All right, Christine Bockerman, are you ready?
Can you hear me?
There you are.
Okay.
How you doing?
Good. How about you?
Good.
Good. We actually go to Hank Kuhneman's church, so we're going to our Lord of Hosts, our picnic tonight for 4th of July. So
that's amazing.
brought our way. So I'm in the car. Yeah. So we live in Omaha. But anyway, my dream was, and so I'm going to use I'm going to use the Joseph method and explain what I think this is. It's very short. I woke up at 3:33 and I was trying to help 3 people that had Charlie horses. So that's all I remember in my dream. So I asked the Lord, what does that mean? So I looked at Charlie horse first. And he said, look up a horse that's named Charlie. So I did. And there was Hot Rod Charlie. And Hot Rod Charlie won the 2nd in Belmont, I think, and the 3rd in Kentucky Derby, one or the other. And also, so then he said, and remember, Amanda Grace had a dream about Medina's spirit. And I said, okay. So I contacted Dawn Marie and said, can you give me that episode? She sent me the episode. There was something about Biden being, how should I say it? There was someone that was elected that was not supposed to be elected, but with the horse, he had some anti-inflammatory or something. So they were checking out and they were finding out that he was not supposed to win. And so the other horse was supposed to win, kind of like what happened, what happened November 3rd. And so the Lord was talking to me about this horse, this Hot Rod Charlie, was a yearling. And usually they get horses at 2 years old. But these college kids, 5 college guys, got together, bought this horse, and they took a chance on it. And now it won this year, It was winning, and they really think it's going to really do really good. So I just believe this has something to do with President Trump being that we took a chance on him. And then another part of it was that I believe I'm a chaplain with the jail and prisons. So I believe that I'm going to be helping people that maybe people don't think that they have a chance, but they're going to do above and beyond what we think that they can do. That's what I came up with, that meaning of the dream. So I don't know.
Awesome. Well, so it started out with you were helping 5 people with Charlie horses. Is that right? You froze up. Can you hear me? Uh-oh. Christine, can you hear me now? There you are.
Did what?
So you started out with you were helping 5 people with Charlie horses, right?
3.
Okay. Well, we just lost her. Donna from Sim, are you with us? Hey, there you are.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm good. You?
Good.
All right. I've been kind of curious about this dream that I had a couple years ago. And it's interesting to me because I think this is probably the only time I've had this happen where I fell asleep. And then when the dream started, I was exactly in the position, in the setting that I was when I went to sleep. So it was in my bedroom. My TV was on real low. And like I said, when I started in the dream, that's exactly where I was, in almost exact same position, except I was propped up on my elbow. And my head was kind of tilted up and my mouth was open and I was praying in the spirit, but I wasn't saying words. My tongue was vibrating like a tuning fork. And then when I woke up again, it was completely seamless. I was right back in that same position. So that was pretty interesting.
So what happened in the dream was just you were vibrating like a tuning?
My tongue was. So it was like I was praying in the spirit, but instead of a spirit language, my tongue was just vibrating like a tuning fork.
Are you sure you fell asleep?
That's what kind of crossed my mind. Because it was so seamless and the setting never changed. The only things that I can tell were different was, like I said, instead of laying down, I was propped up on my elbow. And then in the dream, there was no sound from the TV, but it was turned down very low when I went to sleep. So.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like like a vision. I would say that sounds like an encounter. It sounds like sometimes when we pray in the Spirit, things can happen where we just encounter God in a whole new way because we're speaking mysteries to God. At that time, I talked to a gentleman that was actually teleported. I talked to him yesterday. He's a friend of mine, and he was driving home, just kind of singing in the Spirit. And next thing you know, he was 30 miles away from where he was. He had just looked at the clock and the odometer, and nothing changed. And he was, in fact, 30 miles. He passed his time. It was 15 minutes from his home, and now he was 15 minutes past his home in the other direction. And so I don't understand totally what all of that means. What I do understand is that there can be a time when we hit a stride with God where the heavens open up and something happens at a whole different level. So what I believe is you were tapping. I have another friend that when he prays in the Spirit, a lot of times he'll hit a place where he just groans and he just makes this noise. And it's just like an ongoing monotone. Sometimes it's a guttural mourning sound. Sometimes it's more of a higher pitch sound. But yeah, I don't know that it has much meaning other than that. And other than I would just say continue to do it. Continue to go into the deep places of God and explore those things, even if we don't necessarily have explanation for it. And even if sometimes they make us uncomfortable. But it's interesting. One of the things that, as you know, that I teach is 1 Corinthians 14 talks about tongues are us speaking mysteries to God, and they require an interpretation. Dreams are God speaking mysteries to us, and they require an interpretation. So it's literally like two-way encrypted communication, where it's encrypted one way and it's also encrypted a different way, another way. Mm-hmm. And you need two different encryption codes really to be able to understand. It would be like the most secure, incredible communication for man to be able to understand, and we can understand it by the Spirit of mm-hmm. God. And it's pretty amazing when that happens. So when people have experiences where they're praying in tongues or where they're praying in the Spirit in the midst of a dream or a sleep time, I think that's a really special thing that happens because it's simultaneous two-way encrypted communication. So that's pretty cool.
Very awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for chiming in, Donna. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Is Christine back? I do not see her. I think we must have lost her. Okay. All right, Nicole. Hey, it says you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. Yeah, I don't know. It says you're unmuted, but I can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
Okay. I was trying to do through the headphones.
Okay. Now I lost your picture. Oh, there you are.
Are we there?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, no. Okay. Are we good?
Yes, we're good.
Now it's not working on my end.
Oh.
Shoot.
I can see you and hear you. Can you hear me? All right. Well, I'm going to give her a minute to figure it out. And we will go with Lissa. Or Lisa. I'm sorry, it's Lisa, right? You're muted still.
Hi. Am I
Hey.
Can you guys hear? Hey.
There you are.
So I'm going to let you choose. I have a cockroach dream or a dog poop dream. Which would you prefer? They're both short.
Let's do the cockroach dream.
All right. Cockroach dream. I'm up on a second level in a big bedroom. I know I'm upstairs, big level. Big, huge, everything's oversized. Big, huge white bedroom, big, huge bed in there, big, oversized windows. I'm with my husband. I walk up to the window and I'm like, wow, it's so bright. We're going to have to get blinds, curtains, or something. And as we're walking out of the room, husband goes first. I look to the right and I see like a little pocket, like a little swollen piece of the drywall. And I'm like, what is this? And I start picking at it. And there's a dead cockroach under the drywall. And I grab a tissue, get it out, throw it away, wake up.
Huh. That's an
And
interesting.
5 weeks later, I had a very similar cockroach dream. So I don't know if I think they're one of the same.
Yeah.
But
Well, tell me the second one.
second one is just me, big white bathroom. It's not my bathroom. I'm in a humongous white pedestal bathtub filled with water. I'm laying in it. Then I get out. I look in the bathtub. Water's completely gone. And there's a little like free sample of shampoo packet stuck to the right side of the bathtub. And I stick my finger down there. I'm like, what is that? And then a live cockroach comes out and it like just disappears. So.
Okay. Well, the first one, you said you're on the second level.
Yeah,
So it
second level.
represents going to another level. A lot of people would say they would describe that as a second story, which means there's another story that's occurring or happening. So in the dream, you guys went, did you go up the stairs or were you already up there?
I know we went up the stairs. Yeah, it was a big house. That's kind of just a piece of the dream. I was just trying to make it short.
Yeah.
Don't want to take up too much time.
Did you recognize the house?
No, everything was just oversized. It was like really, really big. And same thing with the bathroom. It was just everything was big, really high ceilings, white everywhere.
So it sounds like a new place. It sounds like that verse. I think it's where is it Isaiah that it says, extend your tent pegs, strengthen your tent pegs, extend your ropes, and expand the place. And your kids will say in your hearing, this place is too small, and it's all about having more. It's more from a family perspective, from a legacy perspective, going into a new place, a new house, a new habitation, a place for your family. And the first one, you're going to the second level, which represents going to another level, higher promotion, right? And then you get up there and you see all of these just huge plate glass windows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So windows represent the looking glass. They represent seeing into the future. So it's the idea that you're going to be able to see further, and you're going to have an increase in your prophetic gift to be able to be up there and to realize that you can see things. I feel like this place it's a spiritual place, but I feel like there's also a physical component to it, to something that you guys are going to step into. Excuse me. And on the spiritual side, it's going to be a higher level. It's going to be a place of seeing further. And it's interesting because when you think of a glass window as like now we see through a glass darkly or through a mirror dimly, glass seeing through the glass represents seeing into the future. And there was so much of seeing into the future that you're like, well, we need to get some blinds. Like it was almost like too much.
It was very bright.
Yeah. So it represented looking into the future being bright, but thinking, wow, this is a whole lot to take in. And I feel like that's what happened with some of the people, excuse me. That's what happened with some of the people in our spiritual intelligence mentorship is they've just gotten so many dreams and so many downloads and so much information. It's almost like too much. And so they're just like, wow, there's just a whole lot that we have to process and that we have to do. And I feel like that's part of the level that I feel like there's an abundant level in the prophetic, particularly related to dreams, visions, and what we call spiritual intelligence in this season. And as we've continuing to pray and ask God to show us more, he's faithful to answer those, and he does. And it requires, it requires and allows a promotion in our gift, but also a promotion in the things that we influence, a promotion literally in our physical domain and even in our family. But it also allows us to be able to take more in, to the point that sometimes people want to back up a little bit and say, well, this is a lot. So we need to slow this down a little bit. So you're in, what kind of a room are you in? Like a bedroom?
It's definitely a bedroom. There's just a big, humongous bed, like 4 posters, the 4-poster, I think that's what it's called, bed with the big footboard and the base. I don't even know what it's called. headboard, baseboard, like those big posts are up, and it's a really tall mattress, and that's all I remember is the windows and the bed, and then of course the dead cockroach I found under the drywall. So I thought that was,
Yeah.
and my husband had just walked out of the room, so he wasn't there. It was just me that noticed it.
Wow.
So I thought that was interesting.
Well, it's interesting because the bedroom and the big bed confirms the idea of more in dreams,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're in the place of rest, you're in the place of where you go in the night hour. It's in this place where the windows are, which means God's going to take you to another level. He's going to show you so much more in dreams. When you said 4-poster bed, I was reminded of movies like Gladiator, where the royalty, the king and the queen, have these opulent, massive beds, and they're always 4-poster beds. It reminded me of a bed of royalty, right? A place of dreaming from a kingly or a queenly perspective, which
Cool.
means, and the mattress itself was higher. So there's not,
It was really tall.
yeah. So it represents an elevation, not only in, because the windows represent an elevation in what you see. The higher bed represents an elevation, I believe, in your level of rest. You know, you're already going to see, you're already going to see more from the place of dreams and things that God is going to show you in the night hour. So your prophetic gift is going to increase in that place. But as you're walking out, so it's like, there's a bubble in the drywall, like in the paint, or like in the drywall, like the plaster?
The plaster, but it's just, everything's flat. It's a drywall finish, and there's this little pocket, I thought of like kind of leavened bread, like it just kind of like popped out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I just kind of picked at it and just kept going. And then, like I said, I found a dead dried cockroach underneath the paint. So something was hidden and it was dead and covered up, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it represents what I hear is whitewashed walls. And whitewashed walls, there's a verse in scripture where it talks about basically just painting walls of like dirt and clay with white paint. And then when the rain comes, they wash away because they have no substance. And so there might be not all of your walls, but just a part of a wall where something that is dead, but was obviously some sort of thing that you wouldn't want in this brand new opulent place. Something has been covered up and died there. And so I believe what that is saying is there's something that God wants to expose. And I believe it's for you in particular, because your husband wasn't there. And it's kind of like, I hear the phrase fly in the ointment. It's a bug. It's not something that you have to fight or deal with because it's already dead. The only thing you have to do is recognize it and remove it. And so that may be a mindset. It may be something that has to do with a feeling of unworthiness to the new levels that you're about to be in, to the place of royalty, to the open heavens and the dream world and in the prophetic world. And I feel like there's just this little thing that, it's not going to kill you. It's harmless. And in fact, even if it was alive, it's harmless, but it's dead. It's already been taken care of. But God wants you to remove that old piece of thinking, because what he has for you in this room is going to be amazing. And the fact that you saw it in a bathroom too, again, a bathroom is a place of letting go. It's a place of self-reflection, and it's a secret place. So God is showing this to you in particular. So if my words as I'm speaking to you doesn't bring something to mind where you immediately, okay, I know what that thing is, then just ask him to show you what the cockroach is, and he will. And you're already, it's not like your promotion is dependent on removing the cockroach. It's just something that you're already being promoted. Your windows of heaven are already open to you. An elevated time of revelation in your rest and in your dream life has already happened because you're already in these places. But you just don't want the bugs hanging around.
Well, when I had the second dream, it was exactly 5 weeks later. And I just thought it was interesting that I found the live cockroach in soap. It was a soap packet. So I thought, well, okay, it might be cleansed, but it was alive this time, but it ran off and left. Mm-hmm. So I thought maybe I dealt with it. I really don't know what it was. I'm always going through, repenting and deliverance kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So nothing really came to mind at that particular time. But when I learned Joseph method, which is months after these dreams, I'm like, it was in soap. It got cleansed perhaps and gone, but I'm not.
I think it's something super easy. I mean, it's not like deliverance. It's not like sin. To me, it's like a mindset. It's just something that it's already been dealt with, that it's dead, but it was just kind of painted over. And God's like, no, I want you to think differently about this thing. And it's just a matter of picking the paint away and throwing it away. I mean, it's not even a battle. Like, the battle's already been won. And even the cockroach, it's already in the soap packet. It's already been cleansed. It's already been washed. It's not some gross disease infested thing. You simply just don't want it there.
All
So,
right.
yeah.
I'll ask Papa what it
Okay.
was, and I know he'll be faithful. All right. Thank you. God
Thanks
bless
for
you.
sharing. All right. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right. Did we get Christine back? We did not. Okay, Tracy, are you ready?
Hello.
Hey, Tracy, how are you?
Good. So when I was little, I had a dream. I was probably between the ages of 5 and 9. And I was in heaven walking around with an angel. And we stopped at this mansion. I'm just reading because I just typed it out. But we stopped at this mansion and we walked through the door into a big foyer. And there was a big marble type staircase. It was probably about 15 to 20 feet wide. It had a balcony on either side that looked down into the foyer. And I never saw the rest of the house. Didn't look around at anything else. There was a lot of windows in it. There was a lot of light that came through. And then we went outside and walked off to the side of the mansion. And there was this plush green pasture, a lot of wild flowers. And then there was a Palomino horse that was grazing. And the angel told me that was my mansion and my horse. And then there was others walking around, but I never saw anybody's faces, including the angel that was with me. But everyone was wearing like soft white flowing robes, and everything was just really bright and beautiful, and pretty flowers everywhere, and bright green grass and everything. But that was the only thing that I ever saw.
Did you feel like you were in heaven?
Yeah. But being that little, between the ages of 5 and 9, I really wasn't sure what was going on. And everything seems so much bigger. And I don't know if when I was there, I was little, or if I was an adult and everything was just still big.
Okay.
I didn't have any
it felt
sense
like
of time
heaven,
or
right?
anything.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave.
Did you have any medical struggles or near-death experiences between the ages of 5 and 9?
Not anything that I know of, no.
I feel like what God is saying is he's telling you at a very, very early age that your impact and your legacy, literally the treasures that you're storing up in heaven, are going to be tremendous. And he told you this as a timestamp, because when you're 5, you probably haven't gotten 1 million people saved and done great things for the kingdom at that point, And so what he's doing is he's telling you, it's kind of like the Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, right? He also said, before I formed you, I knew you, which means I knew the path that you would take. I knew the destiny and the calling that I have for you. And before you really had a chance to do anything for God or for the kingdom of God, to be able to store up treasures in heaven, he was already letting you know that this is your lot and this is your destiny. I think it's a really good dream. I think it's a dream of inheritance. But the way that you described it, I felt like it was heaven, and it felt like a dream of heavenly inheritance. And Jesus said, do not store up for yourself treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and thieves break in and steal, but instead store up for yourself treasures in heaven. And that's what this represents. It represents treasures in heaven. Treasures in heaven, we're certainly saved by grace and there's no striving in salvation, but there are definitely things that you can do to store up treasures in heaven. And it sounds like God was showing you at a young age that is your lot, that your treasures in heaven are going to be great and your impact is going to be awesome.
And the horse that was there too, I've always liked horses and always wanted one of my own. So I remember in the dream, that was really exciting, real special for me.
Yeah, that was like, the idea in movies where the rich dad buys the young princess a horse, right? It was just kind of a gift from Papa. He just knew even at an early age that you loved horses and it would speak to you, and that is part of the treasures that you're going to have. The mansion is cool, but to a 5-year-old, the idea of
I didn't care about that.
Doesn't care, but the horse. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. What a cool dream.
All right,
I love that.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, let's go with Allie. Oh, I'm sorry. Allie.
Can you hear me?
I can
Yay!
hear you. There you are.
Okay, so I picked a dream with Gabe. I don't know if you remember, I messaged you about a wedding dream with my ex, Gabe. So the white wedding.
Yeah.
3 days later, I had a dream where him and my mom were going to this dinner before a wedding. I knew it was something to do with another wedding. My pastor was there. He was sitting on my right side. Gabe was sitting on my left. And Gabe was really quiet, like awkwardly quiet. And my pastor was talking to me about a book that I'm reading in real life, and I'm in the middle of it. And in the dream, we talked about how I was in the middle of it. And so we kind of talked back and forth. Gabe was really quiet, and we decided to go home, me, my mom, and Gabe. So we walk out to the parking lot, and we're looking for our rental car. And all the cars look the same, and for some reason, I just know we're in Colorado. So we get into this kind of Bronco type car, and Gabe is now starting to talk. He's in the front seat next to my mom, and my mom's driving, and he says something like, you know, I just don't want to be a Christian. I want to continue messing my life up. And I thought that was really interesting. And I was like, okay, well, there we have it. Like, we're not gonna date. And we kind of bickered like back and forth a bit. My mom was really quiet. And he then says to my mom, hey, can I check a voicemail really quick? And I can see on his phone, he gets this voicemail from a woman. I know it's a woman, and it looks like her name is Chateau, which is interesting. And I can hear her. She's like a flight attendant, or she's from the airlines, and she's telling him about a flight. And he gets off the phone, and he's like, just so you guys know, I have to leave at 5 a.m. to go see my dad. And I look at the clock, and it's 4:30 a.m. And I'm just kind of pissed at him at this point. I'm like, whatever. And then all of a sudden, he's in the back of the car. He's in the trunk. He's on his stomach. He looks concerned and stressed. And he says to me, I don't want to be like your pastor. I don't want to cast out demons. And I like look forward, and I'm thinking, that's so silly. Like, what was that about? And I look back over my shoulder where he is in the trunk, and I like, everything kind of happened at once. And my mom says to me, I know what's happening here. And all of a sudden I felt a demonic presence in the car, and I just started yelling like, out, 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 in the name of Jesus. Like, I could feel it. And I could hear her kind of like agreeing with me in the back. Like, she's still driving the car, and Gabe is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I wake up, and it's 5:30 a.m. and I'm like shaking. Like, I'm praying for him. And so what's interesting is, like, in real life, it had been 4.5 months since we broke up, and I saw 4:30 on the clock in the dream. And our 5-month anniversary of not being together was this last Tuesday. So I don't know if it's like a timeline dream or what, but.
Sounds like it. Sounds pretty cool. I like the fact that you kidnapped him and threw him in the trunk. I like that part. That was pretty cool. It was kind of the idea that he didn't want to follow God, and you're like, Junior, you're going, and you just threw him in the trunk. And saw that totally as a kidnapping. And then it's almost like he submitted to the process. Like, I know I'm going, but I just don't want to cast out demons. So, which is, it's kind of the idea that sometimes people don't want to get saved or become a Christian because they think that it comes with an expectation of living the life of somebody else. And they're like, well, that's weird, and I don't want to do that stuff. And of course, those of us that are Christians know that that's not the case at all, that each person has their own calling and a different different thing. But it was also interesting that the cars were rental cars and that they all looked the same. A rental car, the car represents a vehicle to destiny, but your mom is driving. So it's not just like a vehicle to your destiny. It's like your family's destiny. It's like your bloodline. And your mom is driving, which means your mom has very strong feelings and input into your relationship, right? She feels a very, very strong, I could just hear she's giving you an earful about how she feels about this guy. And it's almost like she'll drive the car begrudgingly as long as he's kidnapped and in the trunk. but I just feel like your mom doesn't necessarily agree with the relationship. I don't know if that's true or not. Could be wrong.
She definitely wants him to be saved if we were to get back
Yes.
together, but she's been walking very close to me. Like, we've been like battling for him in the spirit, and it was just interesting that I had this dream. And I thought the fact that I saw the name Chateau was interesting. For some reason, I heard Kingdom Calling. And the fact that right after he was like, I have to go see my dad at 5. And I'm like, is that the 5-month mark? Like, what is, you know?
It could be. It could be an encounter with God at the 5-month mark. But what was also interesting is as your mom continued to drive, he shrunk. And I feel like his influence on you diminished. So the fact that you were warring with him in the spirit or for him together with your mom, represents the dream that you guys literally wanted to kidnap him and take him down a path. I feel like God gave you, if you do ever talk to him, the dream doesn't say go talk to him, but if you do ever talk to him, it sounds like God gave you the key to his objection, which is the weird stuff of deliverance. And maybe he had some sort of hurt or pain in that area where he just thinks that I don't want to be involved in that. So that might be a key. But also the idea that he diminished as you continued down the path, to me represents one of two things. Either he gets saved and he comes with you, even if it's begrudgingly, and the things get resolved. But at that point, you think you'd pull over and get him out of the trunk and put him in the car, which didn't happen. Or it means that as you continued, God was showing you the fact that you were battling in the spirit with your mom over him and his salvation. But as you went further down the road, the idea of him, which would represent the pain of the loss of the relationship, diminishes, which I believe also the burden will lift, because God will prepare you for the man that he has for you as your husband, and you won't be praying for Gabe endlessly for years to come.
That's good.
So it's a good thing. I think it's either, he gets saved and submits to the process, or the pain will diminish, and so will the need and the calling to be able to pray for him and war for him. So it's a good word. It's a good word, but it's definitely some actionable intelligence. It's God telling you. And I do think that the time represents months. So look for a shift, especially as you approach the 5.5 month mark. I think there's got to be a release for you one way or another.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Right.
Awesome, Allie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Richard. Let's get a guy in here.
Okay. Awesome.
Nice beard, man. Nice
Richard.
Hey, John. How's the water in Waco?
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's my it turned into
I think you're playing
anyway,
it. We're hearing an echo.
My Moses look.
Oh, okay.
It was a pandemic beard, and then anyway,
hearing an echo.
sorry. All right, how's that?
There we go.
Is that good?
Yeah, I like the Moses look.
Well, I don't want to hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Sorry. All right, how's that?
Can you hear me now?
No, I couldn't hear you. I had to turn my TV back on.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, cool. So what's your dream, man?
I'll just tell you real quick my dream. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I had a dream. And somehow I knew I was in the future. And I was in a 14-story building. And while I was up there, I knew I had been hired to do a support role, like technical support type thing, although that never came up. But it was a I know it was a support role. As I looked at it, the person that was making the selections, he was sitting everybody in a cubicle environment, but he was sitting them by twos. And the way he was doing it, he was assigning a lead person, and then for some reason, the other one was called a simple tech. And so he was going through that, and he selected me and some other person, but he put me as the simple tech. And somehow I knew that that was not what it was supposed to be. And as I looked around, other people were noticing the same thing, that they got it confused. They're putting the leads as simple and vice versa. And so as the other people were noticing that, then my dream gets it changes. It's like I saw two figures that one of them I thought was my wife, but not real sure, and the other one was another person, and I saw them walking into the bathroom, but the thing is, they looked opaque, rather somewhat see-through. And the thing that was really different was that I could see such detail. It's like the guy was like a dirty blonde hair, square jaw, 5'11", 180 pounds. That kind of detail. I've never had that kind of detail. And then I for some reason I said, I just saw two people go into the bathroom, and my wife answers me from the other side of the room in real life. So then I woke up. It's pretty trippy.
Wow, sounds really interesting. So at the very beginning, where were you, and who was the person that was picking whether they were a simple tech or a regular tech? Can you hear me?
Yeah, with that, I know I was in a 14-story building or so. And for some reason, nobody told me, but I knew it was the future. And I have no idea who was doing the picking. I could just see the selections, and they were all in sets of two. And it was all the same thing, a lead and a simple. But then I noticed that they had it wrong for me. And without me saying anything, other people were saying, hey, that's wrong for them. So it was like it was almost like a domino thing. I noticed it, then more and more and more, then pretty much everybody knew that the selections were backwards. And that's when I then went into this two people going into the bathroom, which trippy.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like a work environment. The idea of it being a tech, is that like associated with your job? Was it that kind of a thing? So it sounds like a work environment.
Yeah, I did that for 30 years. I worked for some of the biggest names in the IT field, but unfortunately, I got a medical disability.
Okay. Cool. I like this. It's an interesting dream. It sounds like what God is doing is he's retooling you. He's taking you up to a 14-story building, which is a place of elevation. It's a higher place. I believe it's a place that you can see further. I think it has to do with the prophetic. It has to do with your dream life. And it's the idea that you're going to be used in a different way where you're going to be partnered with somebody where initially you're going to be considered the simple tech because it's not going to be IT. It's going to be something that's brand new and different. So you're going to be like an apprentice, and you're going to be mentored, and you're going to be learning something, but very, very quickly you're going to switch roles, and you're going to be in a place of leadership, and you're going to see other people that I feel like they're struggling a little bit. The people that are going to the restroom, they have some things that they need to let go of. They need to purge, but they also need to self-reflect and kind of look at their own identity in particular and realize who they are and get a grasp on their identity, which is why they're going into the restroom, which is a place of self-reflection. They can look in the mirror. They can, have some quiet time and really begin to understand who they are. But this dream is about identity and destiny for you. It's about the idea that in God's kingdom, you're not on disability. He has purpose and he has use for you. And he's going to partner you with people where you're going to learn new things, but you're also going to lead. So I think it's a good dream. Does that resonate with you?
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, it does.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you. All right. Christy, by the way, as people get done with their dream and head out, the studio is going to free up a little bit more. I know the studio is full right now, so I just want to acknowledge you guys that are waiting. It's super hard since Anna's not with me tonight to read the comments at the same time I'm listening to a dream. So if the studio thins out, just continue trying to get in the studio. I'd rather do them that way because then everybody can see. Whereas if I read them, it's not as much of the same experience. So Rachel Bishop, you're muted.
I'm muted. Sorry. Thank you.
Hey, how are you?
Hi. Good. Thank you so much for all you do. Your ministry. You bless so many people, and praise the Lord. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. I love your background.
Yeah. I have to enjoy the outside as much as I can. So
Awesome.
It's nice to be out here. So this stream is really cool, and I'm very interested in it. And I also wanted to let you know, since I've been listening to you and watching you, it's totally reignited a passion to really get into the dreams and try to interpret them. But this one's kind of short, and I'll just read it out loud, but it's outer space. I had a dream. I was part of a space education program in space. It was a center where we could learn and see stars up close. I was teaching, participating with a class. We had to wear these special goggles and look through a special window in order to see what a star really looks like. And then there were science like molecule models, so you could put them together and show what they were made of. That's it.
Wow. That's awesome. How do you feel about Hollywood?
Oh, I don't have any desire for Hollywood. I don't know why.
I feel like it's a play on words. The idea that you were looking at viewing stars, right? And the idea that you had to have glasses on. Glasses are a lens. They represent the way that you look at something. Like the way that you look at things are going to need to change, but then you're looking out a window and you're being able to see into the future to see what the stars really look like. I feel like the stars represent celebrities in particular.
Wow.
Not necessarily entertainment celebrities, but that's where my mind went. I think of like the Walk of Stars in Hollywood. And so I feel like God is going to put you in a place, in an elevated place, like a spiritual entertainment program kind of a thing, or a spiritual education program, the SEP. You said it was the space education program, but I heard it differently, where he's going to allow you to put on a different lens that's going to give you a heart and a ability to process through the window the identity of celebrities. And even though you may not have had anything to do with celebrities before, really cared about that aspect of life, I feel like God is going to give you a heart for that. And you're not only going to be able to see their identity and their destiny, you're going to be able to analyze things that are happening in their life, which I believe could also be through spiritual intelligence, mainly even through dream interpretation. You're going to be able to point them in the direction of new identity and destiny based on the tools you have, which is the new glasses as well as the new window.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like there's more that I want to share with you on that. I feel like God wants to train you in a special way. So if you would email me at dreamlifedecoded@gmail.com,
Okay.
I'll respond to that email, and I'll just write space dream in all caps in the subject line.
Okay.
And there's some things that I want to share with you privately on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Great
Okay.
dream, Rachel. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks. Keep it
Bye.
up. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. All right. Let's go with Christy.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, Christy.
I have had two dreams that the image that
The
pops in
dreams
my
are
mind.
one and the same.
Well, okay, they're similar. I'm in or around a house, and there's lots of potted plants. Lots of them, like 5 or 6 in a section, or over here, there's maybe a dozen. But the more I think about it and remember the dream, there's not a lot of you can't always see the plants. Maybe it's just an empty pot and you just know that there's something in there. But what's with the potted plants?
Interesting. Well, at first, when I said the dreams are one and the same, I say it at the beginning because a lot of times I'll hear that. And I say it right up front without knowing anything about the dreams, because it's like a sign and a wonder. God will just drop it in my spirit. The dreams are one and the same. I have no idea what you're going to tell me. They could be about cowboys versus potted plants. But if I tell you at the end, it's kind of like, well, yeah, anybody can see that these dreams are similar. So God will have me interrupt somebody and say it at the beginning. So when we unpack both dreams and we see that they say the same thing, it's kind of like, it's a sign and a wonder. The idea of potted plants reminds me of a word that I was given a while back, and it was the idea that you're a redwood in a greenhouse. So potted plants represents a nursery and like an incubation period where, you think of like a nursery where they're growing trees, but they're growing small trees. They're not growing huge oaks or redwoods in the forest. You go to the nursery to buy the potted plant, to take it somewhere else, to transplant it, and that's where it's going to grow and that's where it's going to flourish. But it's not supposed to stay in the pot. It represents like children or like an incubation period. It's kind of like interns or mentees in in a spiritual training program of some sort. So it would almost be like, it's interesting. It's an interesting symbol, because if God wanted to say it was babies or children, he would have you having babies or that were yours. That means that something that you birthed, or they were adopted children, then they were actually children. But plants themselves, to me, lends to the idea of Nebuchadnezzar's second dream, which is the dream of a tree. And again, what I saw was like a nursery where there's baby trees in these in these pots, these potted plants that then grow into something massive. But they're not something that comes from you. They're not something that you birthed directly. They're something that maybe you had a hand in planting or somebody else planted, but they're in your care at the time. And it could be that your idea is to help them get planted to where they're actually going to flourish in their purpose and destiny. So it's like helping a tree find its forest. And it's helping a tree would represent a leader of great importance. Nebuchadnezzar was basically the largest empire in the world at his time. Even on the dream of the statue that he had, he was the head of gold, right? So it represented, a leader of a superpower. And you're going to be able to take people that are baby leaders, they're leaders in training, they're people that have identity and purpose and destiny. You're going to be able to put them into some place where they're going to flourish around a community of people. That's where they're called to be. But right now, they're just in a plant. They're in a planter or they're in a pot, but they're not meant to stay there. So I feel like you have, again, you're not birthing them. They're not your kids necessarily, but you have a piece. And I feel like it's part of the identity and destiny that God has for you, saying that you're going to train leaders in this time and help place them in communities and help them to flourish into what they're and grow into the massive leaders that they're called to be.
Wow. Okay. That is really a lot more insightful, because I've been following the dreams through the Bible and everything. And I, for the life of me, I'm like, I can't figure out what is with these pots that have dirt in them. And I know there's plants in them, but sometimes you can see the plants. Sometimes all you see is the dirt. And the most recent one was last night, where I was in a house that I was looking at considering renting. for some strange reason. And then there were just lots of these pots all throughout the house. You know how some people keep cats? Well, this house had a lot of pots in it with plants. Some of them had plants.
Well, that's two things I want to say to that is, first of all, the prophetic word that I was given about being a redwood is if you put a redwood in a greenhouse, at some point it's going to grow so big it's going to break the greenhouse. It's going to break the roof, which means you're meant to be outside. When you're outside, you're in the weather. You take the hits, you have the wind and the rain and the storms, and that's what make trees strong. Trees that grow up in a nursery and don't have any weather on them at all, they're flimsy, they're not as tough, they're not as weathered. And so when you think of that as far as leaders, there's a time that people may need to be kind of uncovered in a sense. I'm not creating a theology about authority or leadership on it. It's just God may have you in a season where you feel alone, not you in particular, but these leaders. But the idea that you're seeing something, particularly as it relates to a plant, and you can't necessarily see it, is the idea that you're seeing the identity and the destiny before it appears to the common person. So here's dirt in a pot, but there's a plant in there. And I believe, again, that these plants don't represent just like house plants, they represent trees. And again, the idea of having a bunch of plants in a house that you're going to rent, if these are redwoods or if these are massive trees, it's going to be, it's going to be crazy because they're going to grow up quickly and they're going to cause a mess in the house and they're going to have leaves everywhere and they're going to, ultimately break the ceiling. And if they continue to grow. And so again, it's the idea of you helping to find their purpose and destiny, getting them out of the temporary situation they're in to a place where they'll be planted and they'll actually thrive and grow.
Wow.
Does that resonate with you?
It does, in a way. It makes sense with some other things. So thank you very much.
Awesome. You got it.
Great.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Carissa. Carissa, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Okay, thank you so much for taking me. I've had 5 dreams with Lana Vosser over the past, since last summer, between last summer and now. I'm not going to tell you all of them, but there's kind of some similar themes, and I just wondered if you could kind of help me with that. So in the first one, she was holding a baby inside a building, but she seemed to be having trouble knowing what to do with it. The baby seemed insecure with her, and at one point, it started to slip and was about to fall off a ledge. So I reached out and I caught it at the last moment and handed it back to her. There were a lot of distractions going on around us. And then some of the other dreams were me talking with her on the phone like we are friends. Another dream, a totally separate time, she had twins, so more babies, twin babies, and they were both wearing plaid shirts. And I was helping her with those babies. And then then another dream, there was this massive war and battle going on. And everyone had a role to play, and people seemed to be putting together packages for those out on the field who needed help. And I could see what was going on from a distance, and there's all these people engaging. And I was in a larger room with all this chaos and activity, and Lana came over to me sitting on a staircase, the kind that goes up to another level with a big banister, and she was carrying a baby. And the baby seemed very upset, and its face looked older and more disturbed than a real baby would look. So she handed it to me, and I began to comfort it, and the baby seemed to calm down. And just before I took the baby, I was really lacking confidence that I'd be able to help her make a difference with it. But I did it anyways, and the battle was raging all around us as I was holding this baby on a staircase. And then there was one more dream, which I won't share the whole thing, but it was also something very intense with Lana, some boys and strange men, and we were on boats on a river. Near these boat launches, and there was some kind of collision with the boat and people swimming towards the shore. And then I was helping Lana with something as she was preparing to speak, and I was watching her son. And there were some other things, but I don't know if they're as significant. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Wow. So the very first dream, the babies, were they Lana's babies that she gave to you, or were they just in her care and you were helping her with them?
The very first dream was one baby. It wasn't clear whether it was hers or just some, like, that wasn't clear in the dream, but it was clear that I had to save the baby and catch it from falling. And then the dream with the two babies that were twins, I think they were hers, but like, I don't know. Cause I know in real life, she has 3 boys that are young, but not babies. So I knew they represented something else. So I think they were hers.
And you were walking up a staircase and there was a battle going on while you were on the staircase with these babies.
So I blurred it all together too much. So the very first dream I had with her, there was just one baby that started to fall and I helped catch it. Then in a separate dream, there were 2 twin babies wearing plaid shirts that I was helping her with, but that was a separate dream. The staircase dream was a separate dream another time. And at that time I took a baby from her that was really upset and seemed like it had an older face. And there was a battle waging all around us when I took that baby from her. And then there was a 4th dream where I was helping her with her son or something, and there were boats and collisions, but that was a separate one. So there's been at least 5 dreams, and most of them had babies in them.
Do you have any connection to Lana directly?
I have taken a bunch of her classes online, and we don't have like a personal friendship. And one of her friends, Matt Beckenham, is a friend of mine, but that's about it. Okay. I do always feel like I follow her pretty closely.
Okay. I feel like, obviously it's not a literal dream, but I feel like there's something that she carries, literally, like you carry a baby. There's something that she carries that is going to be imparted to you as well. And obviously you immediately think of what she would birth, which would be her prophetic ministry, her identity. She's kind of known, I don't want to say branded because it kind of cheapens the ministry. I don't mean it that way, but she's known as a prophetic voice, right?
Right.
And so I believe that there's going to be that is going to be something that literally it's something that she's birthed and that she carries that you're also going to carry. The idea of catching a falling baby is the idea of saving something, and a baby can represent a ministry, but it can also represent a situation. But you're going to be in a position to be able to see what's happening and to be able to respond in a quick way that is going to save that situation. I feel like it has to do with a ministry in particular. Maybe not, it's not her ministry. Her ministry wouldn't be represented by one baby necessarily because it's not new and it's not undeveloped. It's something that she's done for years, right? So, but it could be an offshoot, or it could be something that was birthed through her or through one of her kids or one of her spiritual kids. The holding the twins represents the idea of, first of all, abundance, and second of all, promotion, because you're in the process. Were you holding the twins when you went upstairs, or was that 2 separate dreams?
That was a separate dream.
Okay, so you're holding what happens when you're holding the twins?
I don't remember anything except that they were wearing plaid shirts.
Plaid shirts. I heard dead men don't wear plaid, which means that both of these, it's a very much alive and thriving ministries or works that they're going to be in your care for a time. That's what that represents. So it goes to catching a baby. It's what I see is there's a progression. It goes from catching a baby, which is helping to save something that isn't yours, but you step in, and because of your quick acting and your motherly instincts or whatever, that thing, and I believe again it's a ministry, is saved and repaired. It doesn't mean that you then adopt it and take care of it. It just means that you have a time in a situation where you step in and you save something. The next part is you're carrying 2 twins. So now obviously the calling has increased and the measure of the calling has increased. Now it's a double anointing, and it's two babies. And they're very, very much alive. The whole idea of dead men don't wear plaid is just the idea that the babies are very healthy. They're very much alive. It's a thriving twin set of ministries that will be complementary of each other. They'll look alike. They'll look like, they'll literally be twins. So it'll be 2 things that are very similar that kind of go together. So the third dream, you're on a stairway. Tell me that one.
The third dream, there was all this chaos going on around us. Like I knew there was this massive war where it's like all hands on deck, and everyone was like putting packages together for people out in the field. And I was in this large room in the middle of all the activity, sitting on the staircase. And Lana came over to me. I knew the staircase went up to like another level. It had this big banister, and she was carrying a baby. The baby was very upset, and its face looked older and more disturbed than a real baby would look. And she handed the baby to me, and I began to comfort it, and it seemed to calm down. But I felt lack of confidence before I took it from her. Like I didn't know if I could really help. And then as I was settling down, the battle around us was still raging, but I was just sitting there holding the baby on the staircase.
Okay, this is interesting. This is another, you're in the process, you're in the transition to another level, which is what the staircase represents, right? It also represents angelic activity, like in the dream of Joseph at Bethel or Bethel. What's really interesting is the idea that it's a baby with an adult face. It's something that's growth has been stunted. If it has an adult face, it should be an adult, but it has the body of a baby, which means it hasn't fully developed. So it's like the idea, it's not the same, but it's akin to the idea of being handed someone else's baby that's a special needs baby, and you're just like, whoa, I don't know how to handle this. I haven't been trained. I don't know how to care for this type of situation where there's a baby with an adult face and the body of a baby, and I don't know what to do. And so there's that, but it's a progression of care. And it sounds like you may have an actual ministry or an identity or a destiny, helping, not necessarily birthing, not necessarily taking to full maturation, but helping in the process of other people's. And again, I believe the babies represent ministry, in particular, like prophetic ministry. So again, you're not like a midwife where you're helping with a startup, helping to launch somebody. You come in at these key moments. At one key moment, you're rescuing something and you save it. At another key moment, you're holding two of them, and they have plaid shirts, right? Or it's also, when I think of plaid, I think of, how everybody wears the plaid union suits together in the red union suits around Christmas time. Represents family, represents holidays, which to me just simply means a season. Typically you wear plaid during a season. I think of plaid, I think of plaid flannel. So You're holding a double portion of somebody else's ministry that you're taking care of for a season. And then the third one represents in the midst of chaos, in the midst of warfare, in the midst of transitioning up to a higher level, you're handed this problem that you don't know how to solve, which is this ministry. It's a baby that's growth has been stunted. It has an adult face. It has a child body. The idea that Lana is in all of these, or Lana is somehow handing you these, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be Lana's ministry or come from Lana. It means it's going to be in the vein of the ministry that she has. And so I believe it's going to be prophetic. I believe what you're going to have is you're going to have the prophetic insight to be able to handle, to care for, and to carry, to save, to rescue, to help develop something that's growth has been stunted. And you're going to be almost like a first responder for these type of situations, almost like a fixer, where you're going to go in and God is going to give you the wisdom and the insight to be able to see what needs to be done, and you're going to do it. And yeah, Shauna says, get ready to level up, Carissa. I agree with that 100%.
Thank you, John. That's very encouraging. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
You got it. Thanks for sharing with us. Have a good night.
You too.
Eileen.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking my dream. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
My daughter and I were in an airport, and she wanted to go to a particular part of the airport to shop. And I told her I had already gone there and that there was nothing there. I felt there was no reason for her to go there, but she insisted on going there anyway. She ran down the steps to get to that particular area. I followed her, but when I got down the steps, I couldn't find her. I asked the man who worked at the airport if he had seen a 4-foot tennis girl come down the steps, and he said yes, but I woke up before finding her. She had a black and white polka dot jacket on. That's my dream.
Okay, tell me the beginning again.
My daughter and I were in an airport, and she wanted to go to like a particular part of the airport to shop, and I told her I had already gone there and that there was nothing there. Because I felt there was no reason for her to go there, but she insisted on going there anyway, and she
So
ran down the steps.
did you have an idea where you were going? Like you're at an airport, so you're obviously going to get on a plane. Did you know where you were going? Did you have tickets? Did you know what location you were headed to? Did you have any of that kind of knowledge?
No.
Okay, it's interesting because your daughter wants to. This is a generational dream. You've had generational dreams before, haven't you?
Yeah. A lot of them I have, actually. A lot of my dreams are about, well, past stuff or past people in my family and stuff like that.
That's amazing. God is just really working with you on the generational stuff. Like he's using you to be able to, I don't want to say clean up, but just to be able to deal with the generational inheritances, because I just feel like there's things that have been robbed from you and your family, and there have been, and I just feeling.
I feel the Holy Ghost as you're speaking. Oh my goodness, really feel the Holy Ghost.
I feel
I
it
had
too.
so many dreams with my family members, aunt, uncle that passed away, cousin that passed away, and I'm like, why am I having all these dreams about people? And most of the dreams I have are from, besides the airport, like old locations. I only had one dream from an apartment that I'm in now that had like almost like a white figure in the doorway, which I think is an angel. That was another dream I had recently. But every other dream, I keep saying, why do I keep dreaming about like family members that are here and that have passed away? So.
Wow, that's amazing. I feel like there's things in your bloodline and your generational inheritance that God wants to restore. And I feel like, and I don't mean any dishonor in this at all, but I feel I feel like the men in your family have not stepped up and fought the battles for your generational bloodline that they should. And so it's fallen on you as the spiritual leader and the warrioress in your family to say, this stuff stops here. This mess stops here. From here on, our generations are going to have a new start. They're going to have inheritances. They're not going to have things that's been passed on from the lies of the enemy, or from the addictions of the past, or from the garbage that's continued on from generation to generation. You're like the one I see you like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, like you're standing on the bridge and you say, you shall not pass. And just the whole idea that the curses that have been in your bloodline stop with you, because you stand up and you say, no. I'm just saying, no, it's not going to happen in this generation, and it's not going to happen through me or beyond me. And so I just think that's absolutely beautiful. But the idea that your daughter is
that's my daughter that's saved. She's the only one that's saved, her and I. She's the one that's in the dream. That was her.
Okay.
So, but anyway,
yeah,
go ahead.
That's interesting. Well, I feel like she's looking for something. She's wanting to shop, and being in an airport is a place of transition. It's a place that precedes promotion, which is going higher. It precedes translocation, right? Going to someplace different, a new higher level, a new authority in the spirit, a new ability to see. And the idea that she wants to shop, I think of like when I go to the airport, I always go to the store, get a bottle of water, get a snack or something. So I make sure I got all my stuff. And to me, it's when you shop in an airport, it's preparation for travel. So she's in a place of transition and she's feeling not ready. And what you're doing is you're saying you're ready. She wants to go to the store over here. You're like, I've been to that store. They don't have what you need. There's nothing there. You're saying you're ready, and she's not feeling ready. And I feel like this is an opportunity for you just to be able to speak into her life. I feel like there's something that she's wants to launch or something that she wants to step out in, and she's feeling unsure. And you're like, honey, you don't need another thing. You have everything you need to get on this plane and take off.
It's something you say that, because when I was just trying to interpret it myself, and my daughter is an adult, but we live together. And I was like, sometimes I'll be feeling like God is trying to get her to go her own way, but she feels very like almost responsible for me. And I keep saying, no, like, Kirsten, I'm okay. And I thought the fact that she was running from I said she ran down the steps to get to that, like she kind of was running off, you know what I mean? To kind of do her own thing, like you said. So that's kind of what I was wondering about too. Like maybe, like you said, maybe it's time for her to kind of launch her own thing. You know what I mean? I don't know. But
So after you tell her there's nothing at the place where she's going to the store, what happens then? She runs off and she goes downstairs?
yes, she insisted on going there anyway. She ran down the steps to get to that particular area. I followed her, but when I got down the steps, I couldn't find her. And I asked a man who worked at the airport if he had seen a 4'10" girl, and that's how tall she is, 4'10", come down the steps. And he said yes, but I woke up before finding her, and I said she had a black and white polka dot jacket on. So I didn't know if the 4'10" meant anything, but that is her height. That's her height, and that's what I said in the dream, which I thought was,
yeah,
she's short. Most people are like, oh, short, but I'm like, no, you're not. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, well, 410 to me is a type of shotgun, which is interesting because I feel like she's a pistol. I feel like she's she packs some punch. This girl.
She's quiet, but she's very strong. She has like a very strong.
Well, that's the idea too of a 410. Is it's a gun that I used it a lot when we were in Boy Scouts. So it's something that you would train kids on. So it's not like a double barrel 12 gauge that's going to knock people on their behind, especially if they're not used to using guns. But a 410 is a little bit smaller, but still it's very much a shotgun, and it can be lethal. But 410 backwards is 10-4. 10-4 means compliance. Like when you're on the CBs, right? And you're like, hey, 10-4, good buddy. Hey, get off at the next exit. There's a 10-4. It means I understand, I have understood, and I will comply or I will obey. And so she's got that mixed up a little bit because she's 4'10", which means she's more, I just feel like the significance in the dream, I'm not speaking this over her, but in the dream, the fact that you said those numbers means that she wants to kind of go off like a shotgun does, create a big blast, create some noise, do her thing. And what you're really looking for is it would be better if she kind of reversed that and there was compliance, 10-4. I'm not going to go off and do my own thing. I'm not going to go down. But the fact that she's going down the stairs to this place, to me, represents getting to the root of things. There's a reason why she feels unprepared. Why, even though you told her what you want to get at that store, it's not down there, that that they don't have what you need. She has to go investigate it on her own. And so I feel that's part of a journey that she has to take for God to be able to take her higher and for her to complete the transition in the phase that she's in. There's some root work that she has to do to be able to go down and kind of figure things out on her own, and realize. And I feel like the fact that she was lost, she wasn't lost because there was a guy that had eyes on her that saw, she was down here, but she was lost to you, which means you couldn't find her. And it doesn't mean that you're going to lose her or anything like that. It just simply means that the journey into the depth of the root of whatever this situation is kind of a journey that she has to do on her own.
Oh, okay.
And so you can pray for her, but don't feel any responsibility to try to coach her through that or walk her through that. You just go ahead and let her do that. But like you did, like a good mama, you went down there to say, hey, is my daughter down? You just wanted to see, is she safe? And somebody said, yeah, she was here. But you couldn't see her. And you're like, okay, that's kind of that point where as adults, or I'm sorry, as parents, we just kind of, okay, God, you got them. I'm praying for them. They don't want me to walk this part of their life out with them, but it's you let them know, and you'll be right there at the stairs when she comes back up. And I feel like she's on the crux of about to really be able to go higher. And I feel like that's in particular in her spiritual life, but I feel like the abundance that she'll see in her spiritual life will manifest in physical ways as well.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you
doing
so
what
much.
you're doing. I'm telling you, I love the fact that you're a warrior for your family and your generation. And I just commend you as a woman of God who the spiritual mantle for your family has fallen on you, and God is continuing to speak to you prophetically and giving you the keys for generations to come that are going to be blessed because you're in their bloodline.
Well, it's something, I guess I kind of don't have a choice because I remember like when he told me, when I told you last time, like 15, 20 years ago, I told him, God, I don't want to do this. It's too hard. But he's like, he just keeps bringing it to me. Like he's not even giving me a choice. So I'm feeling more confident the more I trust him, so.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
he'll help
So
you with it, but it is a good work, and it's a work that it's going to last way beyond you. I mean, you're warring for the next 100 years of your family, and you're
wow.
putting a stop to all the mess that came before. You're the roadblock that says, we ain't doing this. We're not playing this game. We're not letting the patterns repeat anymore. It stops right here. And that's an important work, because generations can go 8, 9, 10, 12 generations dealing with the same garbage, because nobody has the warrior spirit to stand up and fight the battle so their family can be free. And they're just thinking of themselves and their mess, and
Right.
man,
Right.
just one generation to another with no impact spiritually. And God has commissioned you to be that person in your family. And I feel like there's we don't live in a bubble. We think we do, but there's 500 years of history. It's the cloud of witnesses that are looking down, and all of the things that they've pioneered, and they've traveled, and they've, been here and been there, and the things that they've done that they're dead and gone, and they're looking at you, and it's your time now. And I love the quote from Assassin's Creed where it says, "Your blood is not your own." Like the blood that runs through your veins is because of the sacrifice of thousands of years of people that have gone before you in order for you to be here in this moment. And so you're recognizing that moment, and you're letting God speak to you and use you for the salvation of your family and future generations. And it's amazing.
Wow. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for being here, Eileen. Take
right.
care. Bye. Tiffany.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah.
So my dream I had on January 23rd, and it's been driving me crazy, so I'm like very excited. So I was walking down a street, and I was like walking to the library, and I knew it was the local library, but it was like a country road. It wasn't the downtown library, but I knew it was the same one, but the building was different. And I walked past a Lutheran church that I didn't recognize on the way to this library on this country road. And I knew inside the library on the first floor, I was going to meet like people for like a really small church service, like from my church. So I got in the library at the same time as this older woman, and I ended up not going to the church service. We went to the top floor, which was the third floor. And I just escorted this woman I didn't know to the third floor. And there weren't any books. It was a fine art exhibit. So they were asking for $5 donations to enter, but you could just walk in. And the woman and I just walked in. And then there was a window off to the side, like a floor-length window. And I saw on the sidewalk outside on the ground, my mom was pushing my grandma into the building. My grandma was in a wheelchair most of her later years because she had trouble walking. And so I asked the older lady if she was okay because I wanted to go meet them. And she said yes. So I went downstairs to meet my mom and her mom. And so I ended up telling them, hey, there's an art show upstairs. And so they went upstairs. I followed them, and we totally forgot about the church service. And so they just kind of went straight in, and I stopped to donate, but I didn't give $5. I went through my purse, and I gave a bunch of old tarnished coins. And I gave them some pepper that you'd season with and some candy into this box. And it was really full. So I was stuffing it in this donation box, trying to get it in there. But it didn't end up being $5 worth. I kept the dollar bills, and I kept salt packets that were in my purse. And they were cool. There were two ladies sitting at the donation box, and they were all excited. They thought my donation was okay. And so I went into the art exhibit and was trying to catch up with my mom and my grandma, and they were halfway through it, going pretty quickly, walking through. And I was trying to catch up, but I didn't want to because I really like art and I wanted to stop and look. And there were these beautiful paintings of wooden canoes that seemed like 3D with dynamic water and waves, almost like they were coming out alive at you. And it was almost like the water was swirling. there weren't people in the art. It was more like nature. And I woke up going, oh, do I catch up with them or do I stop and look at this?
Wow, that's really interesting. So you were headed down. Did you recognize the street you were on?
No, it's kind of like a country-ish road, like in a rural area.
Mm-hmm. And so you were headed past the Lutheran church. Was it on the right?
Both the church and the library were on my left.
Okay, they were on the left. And the Lutheran church was first and then the library.
Yes.
Okay.
Those were the only things on the road.
And you didn't go to the Lutheran church, you went to the library.
Correct.
But you were trying to get to your church, or there was a meeting, a church service, but that was going to be in the library.
Yes.
Not in the church. So it's interesting because the road represents the road less traveled, right? So it's a country road. It's a place where not a lot of people go. It's not a city road. It's not a highway. So it's on the road less traveled. And the Lutheran church represents the thesis of Martin Luther, which just represents a massive correction. You know, when he nailed the thesis on the door of the front of the church, that's why it's a Lutheran church, because it represents a shift or a change in church and in church doctrine itself, which is represented later in the dream, because you know you're going to a church meeting, but it's actually going to be in this library / art exhibit place, not actually in the church building itself, which I think is really profound, because it's the idea of the church leaving the building, but becoming something much more beautiful than it was before. You know, I also feel led to tell you that the way that the Renaissance happened, one of the key things that triggered the Renaissance in Europe and all over the world was that the church began to pay artisans. The church began to pay the artisans to come in and to paint, you know, the Sistine Chapel, and to build these beautiful things and commission, you know, marble statues and works of art and all of that. And it was the church paying the artists and the artisans that basically launched a worldwide renaissance in art. A lot of people forget that. A lot of people minimize the role of the church as it relates to the artist community, and there's whatever. But that's a fact, and it's part of history. So it's interesting that you went to this library, which would be a place of resourcing, and in particular, a place of revelation. I'm an author, and when people write books, it's typically because they feel like they've found something, or they have a story that the world needs to hear. People don't typically just write boring stuff. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm a whistleblower and you got to know what's really going on in this industry. Or, oh my gosh, I discovered this new thing and I want to share it with everybody. So a whole lot of books are written that way. So a library then becomes a place of revelation, really a repository of revelation. And a lot of books, I believe, whether authors are Christian or not, it doesn't matter, because the gifts and the call of God are irrevocable, are ideas that are birthed from heaven. They're a calling on somebody's life because God wants them to solve a problem or wants them to find a solution. And he has the grace of heaven deposited in them for that. And whether they're a Christian or not, the calling is still there to solve the problem. And so they write the book. It doesn't even matter what their faith is, because God doesn't look at his children and say there's Christians and non-Christians. He just looks at, these are his children, and some acknowledge him and some don't, right? So you go to the second floor, is that right?
The third floor. It's the top floor.
Okay. Of course you go to the third floor. The third floor represents the third heaven versus the second heaven. So the third heaven is the place of revelation. It's the throne room, right? It's the place where things come directly from God. And it's in that place that you see this art exhibit. So they charge you $5 to get in, but they're okay if you don't pay. So 5 is the number of grace. So literally you have grace for access into this place. Right. And it's interesting that you don't need to pay, but then you decide, well, I'm going to go pay, but I'm going to hold my dollar bills back, and I'm going to hold the salt back, but I'm going to give them the pepper, and I'm going to give them the old coins. Right. So there's literally a deposit that has to do with, I hear like, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. You know, when they asked, Jesus said, pull out a coin, look at it, who's on the denarii, right? Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. And so it's the idea, first of all, of ancient coinage, and coinage actually has more inherent value than paper does. A fiat currency is what paper is, and coins actually have precious metal value. And so you're giving something of real value, and also something that's spicy. The idea of pepper versus salt. Salt is used for preservation, and paper dollars would be more of a long-term type of, it would probably be more money in paper versus coins, depending on what the coins are. But if they're old coins, if they're ancient coins, they could potentially be antiques and have more of a value and be something that, you could use in that regard. And so you're making that deposit, and it's a deposit of something that's old and ancient with inherent value, but also brings a level of variety, spice. It's the idea of you have a deposit that's to be made into this artistic community, into this display. And you're thinking, well, I'm just there to look at what's going on the wall. And it's actually, no, you have a piece to play in whatever this artistic expression is. What's really interesting is from the place, the looking glass, right? From the window, you look down and you see 2 generations of the female side of your family. So there's something about a generational inheritance. God does this a lot on dream nights, is he'll deal with themes and he'll deal with different things. And it's great for people that are watching because they get to see how God is speaking to different parts of different families. And they can see kind of the replication, and they can begin to even see some of the patterns and the frequency and the way God does things. But it's awesome that you're looking down and you're seeing your mother push your grandmother into the building. So that represents a coming together of all 3 generations of the female side of your family. There's something that I feel like your mom does well, but it's an inheritance from your grandmother, because she's literally carrying, in a sense, that's the wheelchair that's carrying your grandmother, but she is directing your grandmother into the building. And you're all converging on this artistic location in this place of revelation in the third heaven. So here's what it all means. God has some gifts and some talents for you. I believe they're artistic or revelatory in nature. I don't know if you're a prophetic artist at all.
I'm not an artist.
You're not an artist. Okay. Is there anything that you do that's artistic? Singing, any type of, okay. There's something that I feel like there is a destiny in that for you. And it's not, it's a different, how do I say this? It's in the dream, you're not the artist. You're not the person painting. You're observing the art, but you're in an artistic community and you're making a deposit. So it could be that there's something that you add. It could even be a level of investment, but there's a level of ancient flavor. Oh, I know what it is. It's what I said about the Renaissance. It's the idea that the church paid the artists, and that's what launched the revival of art and the whole Renaissance. And that's what you're doing. You weren't required to pay anything, but you decided, I'm going to pay, and you were paying with old ancient coins, right? Which represents the throwback to like the Renaissance period. That's why I said that. I haven't even thought of that idea of the Renaissance for like 5 or 7 years. So it's interesting that God brought it to mind. Yeah.
I also paid with some 50-cent pieces. I forgot to say. I don't know if that means
50 cent.
anything.
Well, he's a rapper, right? So maybe you have. No, I'm just kidding. You're called to be an artistic rapper. That's what it is. All right, bust a rhyme for us. Here we go. No, but it's in 50-cent pieces are the largest. I think they're even larger than a full dollar, aren't they? They're the largest actual coin. Yeah, they are. So they're the largest actual coin, which means a large deposit, again, of inherent value. Originally, 50-cent pieces, quarters, they were all silver. Now they're watered down with copper and, whatever else. But so it's a large deposit, but it's a special kind of deposit. It's not a paper deposit. Paper deposit, to me, represents a fake deposit, like a fiat currency, no backing. What you're offering is something of real substance, and it's a large gift, not necessarily the largest monetarily, but as far as having value and from a precious metal standpoint. And the idea of the pepper is really interesting. Is there's something that you have that's really going to bring flavor to this community? And again, you're not the painter. So it's not like, well, you got to go figure out how to be a prophetic artist. It's that there's going to be a group, probably an artistic group, that, and it may be that you help fund, or that you bring some level of variety of organization of something too, that you're going to sow into them. And it's something that they're going to need that you carry. And I believe this also going to be like a new expression of church. It might be like an artistic community that wants to get a warehouse somewhere and, do all this stuff, but it's going to be what you wouldn't necessarily think of looks like church, 3 fast songs, 3 slow songs, 3 points and a conclusion. This is something different, but you're literally what artists do is they take, I love the verse that says the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of God as the waters cover the sea. So who sees the knowledge of the glory of God? It's the artists. It's the people that capture what the earth looks like. And so they literally capture the glory of God, whether it's in photography or painting. And what you're doing is you're adding value. Literally, you're adding value, variety, substance to a community of people. And that's going to be a new generation of church. And you're going to be the first one to enter into that in your family, but the rest of your family is going to be part of that. So there's something that's along the lines of a generational inheritance from your grandmother to your mother to you that takes you up to a revelatory place of really observing and seeing the beautiful expression of the glory of God as represented through art in this place of community. So if it doesn't make sense now, it will.
Okay.
And there's going to be a time where you're going to look back and say, man, that guy John wasn't crazy. Here I am in this building. You might even actually be on the 3rd floor. But it's not going to be what you thought, because you thought it was a library and you walked in and there were no books. It was art. So it was a repository. It was a resource center, but it was different than what you thought it was. So be looking for the unexpected, particularly as it relates to a new expression of church.
Okay. I can't get the dynamic water and like the canoe type art out of my head. Does that mean anything?
I feel that that's a throwback to the first Americans, the Native Americans. I saw a picture. I lived in an apartment that was an old building from the 1920s when I lived in a certain city, and they had a mural that was original to the 1926 of the construction of the place, and it was the signing of an American Indian treaty, and it was almost 100 years old, this mural, but it was on a river and it had Indians and they had canoes and all of that. And I believe it's just a throwback or a representation to the idea of original inheritance. Interesting though, by the way, you said you paid with 50-cent pieces.
Some of the coins were 50 cents.
Some of the coins were 50-cent pieces, but that's the only denomination that you mentioned was 50-cent pieces.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the others.
Right. So 50 is the year of Jubilee. 2 things happen in the year of Jubilee. All debts are canceled and the land is reverted back to the original ancestral owners. The original ancestral owners are represented in the paintings on the wall. So yeah, there's something that you're going to release that is going to free them up from debt or some level of bondage. And I don't know that it's physical debt. It's some level of bondage that is in this community that they need to be released from. You're going to bring the keys to have that happen. And then, and then there's going to be land and inheritances that are going to freed up and basically placed back with people who saw them or had them from the beginning. It's an ancestral inheritance. It's an ancestral inheritance or heritage. And it's interesting because there's 3 generations of your family that are there when this happens. So it's a very significant dream.
Wow. Thank you.
Are you in our spiritual intelligence mentorship?
No, but I emailed you about the second one.
Okay. Yeah, because if we unpack what we call the Joseph method, which is much more detailed, this is kind of the 50,000 foot view but there's so much detail and specificity in your dream. And the Joseph method is just basically you start in humility, you identify all of the symbols, you write them down, you ask God for a word of knowledge. What does this symbol mean? And like 50-cent piece can mean year of Jubilee, things like that. Your mom, your grandma can mean generational inheritance. And you write all those down, and we teach you how to do that in Sim. And then at the end, based on everything that God gives you in a word of knowledge, then you say, okay, here's what the whole thing means. We call it a conclusive summary. And then the actionable intel is now here's what you should do. And the action that I gave you is be looking for a new expression of church that's not going to be, it's going to be past church, because you walk past the church, right? And the whole idea of the Lutheran church is the idea of church changing because of the thesis nailed to the door. So you walk past traditional church and you go to a new place that you think is a resource center. You go up into the third heaven and the place of revelation, and you see this beautiful place of artwork. And that's where you make the deposit. And it's also from that place that you're there first pioneering. And then you see your mom and your grandma entering into this place that you've already been to. So you're going to be a pioneer in your family and a new expression of church. It's going to be artistic in nature. It's going to be something that you're really going to dig. It's going to be awesome. And you're going to have a deposit there that's going to free up things that's going to allow them to probably expand and do more and free up resources, but also free up an inheritance for them, which I think is incredible.
Wow. Thank you, John.
You got it, Tiffany. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Good deal. Is there a place to read about the Joseph method? No, we haven't really put anything in print. But what we have done is we have a spiritual intelligence mentorship, by the way. We just finished our very first one. We're going to start our second one here in a couple of weeks, July 22nd. You have to apply for the spiritual intelligence mentorship in the way that you apply. And somebody, if you're in Sim, just put this in the comments here. You just send an email to me at dreamlifedecoded@gmail.com. And I want you to answer two things. Why do you want to be in the spiritual intelligence mentorship? And what do you feel that you bring to the table? Because what we're doing is we're building a community of people, and we're building a community of people that can interpret dreams at what we call the presidential level. Dreams, we work with people that advise the president of the United States directly. We work with high-level CEOs of large companies and things like that. And so doing dream interpretation like that is a lot different than dream interpretation like this. Sometimes we put together 4 dreams into one document we call a dossier, and it's 30 pages long. So it's not a 5-minute, oh, hey, this is what your dream means. This is one practice of dream interpretation. What we do is spiritual intelligence, which is bringing a whole lot of different pieces of intel together to provide a very high level of intelligence and specificity to leaders that need that information on a different level. We call it the Joseph method because it's modeled after the method that Joseph used when he interpreted Pharaoh's dream. Okay, Antoinette.
Hey, that's me.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay, I have 2 dreams that I think are very similar.
Okay.
So I want to preface this by saying I am happily married.
Okay.
And I used to work in a mall in my younger days. So I think that might have some significance from what's in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the first dream, I was in my 20s, younger, was not married. And I was visiting someone's house when I realized I had to go to work at a clothing store. I used to work in a clothing store in the mall. That's why I had said that in the beginning. But when I was running around the house trying to get dressed, and I had a baby. It was my baby. I had no car, and I had to figure out how to get to work and someone to watch my baby. It was 5:50 in the dream, and I had to be at work at 6. I wanted to call my boss to tell them I was running late, but for some reason I couldn't call them. I was running around the house trying to find clothes for work and someone to drive me to work. Then a tall young man walked in, and I had a feeling that I was engaged to him, maybe, that he was a love interest. He helped me somehow. I don't really remember how, but somehow I felt like he helped me. I was ready to go to work. Then I picked up the phone because somebody called me. I hung up the phone, was ready to walk out the door, and that tall young man came back in the house, and he had tears streaming down his face. And at that point, I looked at him and I knew that I wasn't the right one to comfort him. And I also realized at that point that like he wasn't the right person for me to be engaged to. And then the dream ended.
Yeah.
And then the second dream.
Somebody was happy the dream ended.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The second dream, again, I wasn't married. I was younger, and I was meeting someone for drinks as like a love interest, I guess. And I realized as I was sitting there having drinks that he wasn't the one for me either. So I left. And I realized I had forgotten my purse and one of my bag that I carry all my, I guess it's like my prayer purse where I have my Bible in it, my journal, my dream journal. So I went back to the restaurant, and the hostess took me to this wall that was filled with purses. And she handed me one, and I said, no, that's not it. But I saw the one that was mine, so I reached over to grab it. And as I reached over and it was in my hand, I was like, wow, this is a really nice purse. There's no way this one's mine. But then I realized, oh, wait, that's the one in real life that I had just gave my daughter, a fake leather one, my little 8-year-old daughter.
That's me.
Go. And so I said, oh, okay, maybe this is mine, fake leather. Yeah, that'll work out for me. Not a fancy one. So I took it. I went. I took it, but I was still looking for my second bag with my Bible and my journal in it. So I started looking all over the mall, and I remember that I had went to the bathroom. So this gets really funny. So I went into the bathroom, and there were tons of stalls, but the bathrooms were weird, where like the doors were very low, so you can see over. And I went in, and I went to go to the restroom while I was in there, and I realized it wasn't clean. So I tried to clean it so I can go to the restroom. And then I could hear this woman getting reviews about how to make the bathroom better from a group of little girls. And then I turned around to walk out of the stall, and there was a man sitting on the toilet right in front of me reading a newspaper in the women's bathroom. And then my dream ended.
Wow. There's a lot there.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the 50,000 foot level.
Right.
There's a work that you feel you need to do that you're not prepared for and you're not ready for. You don't have the car. You don't have a way to communicate with your boss. You're still looking for your clothes. You have a baby. There's all of these things that are in chaos. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to get to this place where you can be productive and you can create wealth. And work, I feel like work represents, in particular, honestly, it represents striving. It represents something that people tell you have to do. If you're an entrepreneur, like I am, you've had numerous conversations with your family where they've said, "What are you just going to get a job, or are you going to continue to?" No, I'm working on a business. I have 3 businesses. Well, yeah, but weren't you making more money when you did mortgages? And so the expectation in life is you got to go to work. Right. But what's happening is there's all of these other things. That's the tyranny of the urgent, that first of all, you got to take care of the baby. It should be number one, right? Because it's you got to raise your kid, and it's something that you birthed, and it's something that God obviously has given to you to be able to raise. And that would be the priority. But at the same time, you're not equipped to go to work. You don't have the clothes, you don't have the car, you don't even have a phone to be able to call them. And so I believe that represents a level of expectation that other people have of you that you're not equipped for. And I don't know that you need to be equipped for it. The idea of the tall, dark fiance, this represents, it's not about a romantic interest at all. It's about a level of partnership that is not, how can I say this? It hasn't been, you're not married to this person, right? So it's something that you've been looking at partnering with, but you haven't made a definitive choice and said, okay, I'm 100% going to partner with this person. You're not married, right? So that hasn't happened. But there's the promise and the idea, and either you're dating or you're engaged or something. There's the idea that there's an expectation. Again, this has to do with other people's expectation. There's an expectation that you'll get to work. There's an expectation that you're going to marry this guy. And then there's an expectation that you're going to marry another guy. And what you're realizing is you're sensing neither of those guys are for me. In the dream, you don't actually go to work. So work isn't for you. You're not equipped to go to work. And so I feel like there's some things that have to do particularly with people that have an expectation, people that are putting expectations on you to do certain things, particularly in striving and in your own strength, and to follow what they feel like is the call in your life, which is these relationships that you're not into. It's almost like an arranged marriage. It's almost like, you know, people want you to do this and you're like, no, I'm not, that dude's not for me, you know? And so I think, and then you end up in this place, this bathroom, and the doors, you know, you can see right into the place. And then there's this guy in there, right? And so it represents, now when the bathroom is dirty. So it represents, in each of these dreams, it represents things that are out of order.
Okay.
Things that aren't properly prepared. You go to a bathroom, you should have a reasonable expectation that the doors are going to hide you in the stall. You would have a reasonable expectation that there's not a man in there. You would have a reasonable expectation that the bathroom is somewhat clean. None of these things exist in your dream, right? You would think if you are in a dream and you're suddenly in a situation where you find yourself having a job and having to go to work, you think you would have a ride. You think you would have a babysitter. You would probably have clothes. You would probably have a phone to communicate. And you don't have any of these things, you know? And so, and then these husband wannabe people are people that are, again, wanting to put their agenda, literally their last name, their branding on you. They want to partner with you and they want to change your identity. And you're like, nope, 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 not happening. So all of this to say, first of all, it's a recurring dream. God is speaking to you 2 or 3 times, kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And what I believe is it's the idea of letting go of other people's expectations and being prepared for what he's called you to do, which will be in a place of not striving, and it'll be in a place where you don't have to be controlled or rebranded by somebody else that you don't feel called to walk with. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I stay home with our kids, so I'm definitely not going to work. That's for sure. So you can take that off the plate. Yeah.
And you're probably not looking at getting married to somebody else, considering you're already married.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to do with either of those two things, but there's an idea of expectation. And I feel like work is just striving and relationship is just partnering. There's people that feel like you should strive or partner. I mean, it's their level of expectation that they want to put on you. And I think you do the right thing in saying, no, I'm just going to reject it. It's out of order.
Yeah, that makes sense, to make sure things are ordered for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night. Fine Port 1. Hey, how are you? Can you hear me? You froze up. I can't hear you at all. I can see you, but you're sideways. Now you're upside down. Go the other way. Now you're sideways again. Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all? It seems like your connection is really spotty. And all right, I'm going to have to come back to you. Cecilia.
I'm here. Hello.
Hey, there you are.
This is a real quick one, and
Okay.
I'm going to read it to you exactly as I wrote it down. 6/24/21 took place at home. As I'm coming in, I'm observing this. I'm not in any way, shape, or form part of the dream. As I'm coming in, the piece of paper turns into a computer touch screen, but the model of the computer itself is probably from the 80s. I saw a hand with the finger resembling the finger of God from Michelangelo's God Creates Adam. And I saw the words on this screen, Nasera and Jasera. Nasera on the left, Jasera on the right. The finger hand had been resting on Jasera. Then it moves to the left and rests on Nasera. And that was the end of the dream. And I want to add this is rather strange point about the hand. It seemed happy to be moving from Jasera to the left to Nasera.
Okay, you've looked up Jasera and Nasera, right?
Yes, I'm familiar with both, yes.
For those that don't know what they mean, could you explain them to them?
They are part of, I'll make it very simple, they're part of something called quantum financial system. Well, depending upon who you talk to. But it is a new economic theory where our dollars are based on the gold standard. It's a new way of doing a monetary system. We're no longer operating with currency that's fiat. It's going to be gold backed. There's also talk about erasing debt. It's a very large program. I think it's like 88 pages long if you read and do the research on it. And I do have some other facts, but I don't know if I should speak of them at the moment.
I think that's good. It's
Okay.
interesting when you said the computer was from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I heard 8088.
Oh,
which
interesting.
is a type of processor back in the days before they began to develop them. I just remember because we had one. My dad was a programmer, and we had an 8088. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. It's also interesting that there was a piece of paper that turned into a computer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the idea of digital currency.
Mm-hmm.
Paper that turns in, certainly. And the idea of, obviously, NESARA, the National Economic Security and Recovery Act. Thank you, Neil. And JSERA is the idea of a new monetary system. And so I believe God is showing you something that's coming. So the paper turns into a computer. What happens then?
It turns into a touchscreen computer.
Okay.
The hand is actually pointing at the words on a touchscreen computer, much like what I have in front of me. But it starts at the right, it's on JSERA, and then goes to the left to NESARA. And that stood out to me because from everything that I've read on these two, the idea was that it was going to start out as a national recovery and then eventually segue into a global. And in this dream, it seems like it was just the opposite.
Well, it's interesting that, so it went from JSERA to NESARA?
Correct.
Okay. What else happened?
And once it landed on the word NESARA, that was it. And then the only thing that I remembered well after the dream, it's almost a week and a half now, was that the hand seemed happy.
Okay. When you think of the hand, we think of the hand writing on the wall, the writing on the wall in Daniel. Dana Coverstone had dreams with a hand pointing to particular places, months, and dates on a map or on a calendar. So both the writing on the wall and we suddenly got some real bad static. Is that you or me? Oh,
Not
yeah.
sure.
Whatever you were pressing. Were you pressing something?
No, I had my pen. I was getting ready to write something down.
Oh, okay.
My bad.
Okay.
It might be my little thingy right here. Sorry.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, cool. So the hand on the calendar in Dana Coverstone's dream is akin to the hand on the writing on the wall in Daniel's dream. And in both situations, it's announcing the future. It's announcing what's coming. In the writing on the wall, it's announcing judgment, main, Tekel Parsons. Thank you, Neil. Which means you have been weighed, measured, and found wanting, right? And tonight your kingdom will be required of you, and so will your life, and it'll be divided between the Medes and the Persians. So that's what that whole thing means. But it was talking about immediate judgment, because literally within 12 hours, the king was dead and the transition of the empire had happened. What this is talking about in particular is it's talking about the difference between national and global economic systems. And what it's talking about beyond that is it's talking about the system behind the system. It's talking about who owns the system. And so this is a dream about the prophetic transition of power from a global financial cabal to a national financial cabal, and the problems and or challenges with cleaning up those systems. So if you're aware with what's been going on politically, particularly in the prophetic, what happened in the last term, what's happened since January of this year, even some of the phrases, some of the campaign slogans of drain the swamp and all of that. If you studied what the swamp is at all, and you go down to everything from campaign finance reform to pharmaceutical companies, and you really understand who are the power players globally, then you realize the swamp is way beyond Washington, D.C., and it's way beyond America itself. There's a global financial cabal that's been basically ruling the world, pushing us towards a new world order. None of this is conspiracy theory. This is all very much fact. If you don't know, you don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know until God started bringing dreams to me, and I wasn't just looking around trying to find out if this or that was true. I just started following the dreams. So that's what I recommend you do. If you want to get woke, if you want to be, as they call, red-pilled, ask God to give you dreams and then research the stuff that he gives you dreams about. And it'll absolutely, completely, and utterly blow your mind, the places that God will take you to, and the research that he'll present in front of you, and the things that he'll show you. And so that's been my journey. But it's representing, the finger represents an announcement. It also represents judgment. The writing on the wall, right? But it's also the finger pointing. There's a verse, I think, what is it? It's Isaiah, I believe, that talks about the pointing and malicious finger. Well, the malicious finger is a finger with bad intent. This was a finger that happened to be happy. You said the hand was happy.
Yes.
So it was happy for the transition between one economic system to another. And it was happy for the judgment, I believe, because really in order to go from one transition to another, especially if you're talking about financial systems and the people that own those financial systems, there's probably going to be a falling of one system and then a transition into a new system.
Yes.
And so the idea, again, that the paper turned into a touchscreen, but it was a touchscreen from the 1980s, represents a throwback into different things. I think it was Nixon in the 60s that took us off the gold standard.
Yeah.
Right?
That's correct.
So, yeah. And so a reversion back to them, I think there's something that happened in the 80s related to the financial system based on this dream. I don't know exactly what it is, but I would start in 88. Because you said it was 88 pages long. If somebody knows,
that's good. Yeah.
If somebody knows of something that happened in 1988 that had to do with a transition in the financial system, feel free to chime in. But God is beginning to announce things to you at a deep prophetic level, where he's showing you not only what's happening nationally, but what's happening globally. And he's letting you know to be prepared. Now, I think a dream, and I'm saying this not for you, Cecilia, because you know this, but for others that are listening, the mistake a lot of people make is they take one dream, and it's one dream as a sticky note in a book of conversation. Dreams are an ongoing stream of conversation between God and you. And so if God is speaking to you about national level and global economic systems, then, because I know Cecilia personally, then what I would say is continue to stay in the stream. Write your dreams down, pray for more dreams, begin to research topics. You guys know I've read, watched 10 movies or read 10 books just on one symbol and one dream. And so if especially if you begin to have ongoing dreams about the economic system, I can give you books to read that talk about that, obviously the Creature from Jekyll Island, it's kind of a no-brainer, the setting up of the Federal Reserve System and kind of the idea of the fiat currency, but even Lords of War, which is about the national bankers or the central bankers, about the 5 central bankers that basically broke the world. And this was reparations, World War I and into World War II, and how these guys manipulated currencies and they got these people together. It was part of the Fed, but it was not just the Fed in our country. And, if you begin to look into the World Bank, the IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, the Basel Treaties, like if you start to go down this rabbit hole, and only go down there, frankly, if God is leading you to.
I feel he is, to be honest with you. This topic has really, really resonated. And I've had a whole host of dreams since this one. This one just is constantly in my face. And I feel like there's something that I need to pursue actively on this one.
Yeah, MQ had a dream about currency change. This may be an assignment for you. For those that are listening, several of the people that are in this group are in our spiritual intelligence mentorship. And what happens is in the spiritual intelligence mentorship, we pray and ask God to give us more dreams and more clarity and all these things. And as we do, people start to get downloads of stuff that they feel like, well, this is way beyond my pay grade. God is speaking about vaccines or about the global energy crisis or about pharma or about global economic systems. And what I say is, because a lot of times people send those dreams to me, and what I tell people is, for people that are being trained and that are being mentored in spiritual intelligence, I say that's your assignment. And they know that then they can begin, and several people are doing this, they can begin to get, like MQ is part of our team, as well as Cecilia. And so what we would do is Cecilia may take the point on economic transition dreams, and then people like MQ or myself, I have several dreams that would fall into this. We begin to send them to Cecilia, and then she begins to look at 5 or 10 dreams as different data points, and we begin to interpret the conversation of what God is saying, not just in one dream to her, but in multiple conversations over multiple years to multiple people. This is the whole idea of what spiritual intelligence is. For the vast majority of the prophetic, it's been one person stands up and says, this is the word of God for the nation. And that's one part. And 1 Corinthians 13 says we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will be done away. Well, the idea of the perfect is the idea of what is called the company of the prophets. But it's not just a group of people getting together saying, here's what I believe God is saying. It's also a group of analysts getting together and saying, well, let's interpret this prophecy in light of this dream, in light of this happening, in light of this. And it's like almost like a central intelligence agency bringing all the data points of the prophetic world together, visions, dreams, prophetic words, actual happenings, and beginning to form a coordinated spirit-led plan of what is God saying over the period of time with all of these pieces. And it's amazing because when you put one of these together, it can even be 2 dreams. I've done multiple ones with 3 or 4 dreams. The intelligence that you get from these type of documents is absolutely mind-blowing. Because again, you're not looking at a sticky note and just translating it into a language. You're looking at a stream of what God is saying over a period of time, and God brought all the connection pieces together. It's no accident that Cecilia's here, that she's part of spiritual intelligence mentorship, that MQ is part of that too. And so what we're doing is we're bringing a group of people together. That's what the spiritual intelligence mentorship is about, is we're bringing a group of people together that are going much, much deeper in dreams than just kind of almost a churchy, somebody says a dream and we give it back to them. That's what we do here. But this is to create a hunger and this is to create a hunger for people to listen to the voice of God through dreams, for people to want to know more about dreams and to keep the conversation going about dreams. But people that like get it and want to go deeper, they come into this group and this community that we're creating. And again, we're providing intelligence to people on national leader level, on heads of state and other country level. The type of stuff that God is revealing is absolutely mind-blowing and incredible. If you're interested in that type of stuff, again, send me an email, dreamlifedecoded@gmail.com. Tell me why you want to be in the mentorship and what you feel you bring to the table. But so I'm saying all of that. Cecilia knows all of this for the benefit of those that are listening. So what I would say, because I'm going to tell her, and it seems like a non-answer, I'm giving her some idea that there's a judgment on one economic system, a transition to another. The hand of God, the hand represents the hand of God, or the hand sent by God, as it says in Daniel, is heralding the transition. There's a definitive period of time where that's going to happen, and it's going to shift. Understanding the times and seasons is important. The number 88 is important. The transition from paper to crypto or to digital is important. But if we put all of this together, it's more than we can unpack in 5 or 10 minutes on a call.
Right.
But what we've done is, and Cecilia knows this because we worked together before, is I've given her some kind of pointers about places that we can go. And now it's become an assignment for her where she's going to write all this out, going to go much, much deeper, because we feel like this word is a word of importance that needs to be sought out in light of other conversations God is having in dreams with other people.
Agreed. John, can I ask you a quick question? Have you ever heard of Dr. Scott Young?
No.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being
Take
here,
care, guys.
Cecilia. Have a good night.
You too.
Jen A. Oops, I got Tyler. I hit Jen A and then Tyler came. So
Hey, what's up?
How's it going?
Good. I got to add real quick before I share my dream with you. I just started my mustache, and if you were to shave your beard, you would have a great mustache going.
Yeah? You think I should shave my beard? Just
Yeah, see, cop level right there.
I used to be in the military and I had just the mustache, and yeah, I don't think the world is ready for me without a beard and just a mustache. It would be scandalous.
So, I've had the similar dreams to the one I had this month a few times over the last couple of years.
Okay.
But I had a dream, I don't know, probably a week or two ago. I know I was in my house, but everything else was like cloudy and fuzzy, except for my wife. And we were talking, and she came out and admitted to me that she had had an adulterous relationship. But I wasn't like mad. But I know there was the children were in the house, but I couldn't see them. But I've had dreams similar to that in the past, where I wake up and then I'm like, well, that's kind of silly, because I know my wife wouldn't do that. And I said the same thing when I woke up from that dream. I woke up and I said, well, that's kind of silly, because I know my wife wouldn't do that. But that was the whole thing. There wasn't a lot of detail to it. It was lacking detail. I've had dreams in the past, like before I went to Iraq, where it was full of detail, and when I was there, I saw exactly what was in my dreams. But this one, normally I have really vivid dreams, but this one was just very, very bland.
But you're sure it was your house?
Yeah.
Okay, it's interesting that a lot of times when we see, you said there was a lot that was really fuzzy, but your wife wasn't fuzzy and you knew it was your house. So
Yeah.
those are like the 2 data points of what you know in the dream. A lot of times when things are fuzzy, they're just details that are important. You know, I was in a group and there were 5 people there, no idea who the people were. The people aren't important. It's just like if God wanted to paint with a paintbrush and show you a painting, you don't need to know every single thing in every detail of identity of every person and every player in the dream to really understand the meaning of the dream. The dream represents an admission of betrayal. It's in your house, which I believe can represent family. I don't necessarily get the feeling that, it's literal by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
And you said, and you confirmed it twice, where you said, no, that's not, my wife wouldn't do that. But I think it's worth, if you haven't already shared the dream with your wife, it's probably worth sharing the dream with your wife and begin to ask the question, you and her together, and even pray about it. is there any type of betrayal in our family? And now I don't mean your immediate family, because a house represents a generational line. Houses are inheritance, right? They talk about J.P. Morgan, right? J.P. Morgan's legacy is Chase Morgan, right? They call it there's actually a book called The House of Morgan, and it's about the banking legacy of J.P. Morgan. So J.P. Morgan was one guy, but the legacy that he left is called his house. So if you're in your house, it represents a generational bloodline. And it's somebody close to you that is coming to you and saying, hey, there's been a betrayal. What's also interesting is it didn't bother you. So again, obviously, to get that kind of information from a wife probably would bother most people. So that's why, again, I don't think it's literal, because your response is completely out of character for what would happen if that was a literal dream. So it's a betrayal that somebody needs to reveal and to share with you from your family, but it's something that's just like, to you, it's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
But I feel like God wants you to know that it's coming and wants you to understand it. And I would even pray and ask him what it is. And if it makes sense, great. A lot of times when I speak things like this, not knowing you, not knowing your family dynamics, people will be like, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. And if so, you don't need to share it with me or anybody else. The idea was for you to get the intel to be able to say, okay, something is going to happen or something has already happened. If you have it multiple times, if you have it 2 times, it means the matter is firmly decided and it will happen soon. If you've had it 3 times, I've seen people have dreams 3 nights or three dreams in a row the same night, the exact same thing. And I've said it's either going to happen in 24 hours or it's already happened. And the thing that I said exactly was going to happen actually happened 48 hours prior. So the number of times that it's recurring has to do with the time frame of when the event may or may not take place. And again, I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but God a lot of times will speak to us figuratively with something that like completely shocks us. Like, it was obviously unexpected. It was something that was out of character because you said in the dream, my wife wouldn't do that. So again, I don't think it has to do with your wife. I think it has to do with somebody close to you. I do think it has to do with a level of family betrayal. I think it's something that God wants to reveal because he wants there to be healing and he wants there to be openness and honesty. And I believe it's, again, you're just going to keep it moving. I don't think it's even going to be that big of an impact, but for the other person, they're wondering, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when I tell him this news?
Yeah.
So,
okay. Awesome. I appreciate
be
it.
unoffendable and ask God what it means. And I think he'll show you. And if something happens, if this is confirmed, write me at dreamlifedecoded@gmail.com. I'd love to hear the rest of the story.
Will do. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyler. Take care, man. All right, Jen A.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, sir?
Good.
Okay, well, I don't consider myself a big dreamer, but when I do dream, I usually feel like it's significant. So this is one particular dream I had a few months ago, and I dreamt I was in the White House, and I was in a room in a study. There were bookcases and there were chairs sitting around. And while I was standing there, I felt comfortable being there. I didn't feel like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the White House, it wasn't anything like that. But while I was standing in the room, President Obama walked in and he had a man with him. And I didn't really recognize the man or even notice the man that much. And when he walked in, all of a sudden I began to tell him I don't remember everything I told him, but I remembered I started telling him all the terrible things that he had done to our nation and to our country. And that, he had betrayed our country. And he had a very stoic look on his face. I could tell he was angry. It was like I got this sense that he was very angry with the words that I was saying, but he never said anything to me. He didn't acknowledge me. And he sat down in a chair and he started putting on a pair of tennis shoes. I thought, wow, okay, he's putting on tennis shoes. And he's lacing up these tennis shoes, and I'm still talking to him. I'm still telling him all these things. And then he got up, and he and the man walked out, closed the door, and I thought, good, he's gone. He's not in the White House anymore, and he's not coming back. And then I woke up, and that was the dream.
Okay. Interesting dream. So you were in the White House yourself.
Yeah, I
You
knew it
didn't
was the White
walk
House.
in. You
No,
were already in there.
I was always already in the room.
And then you saw him walk in.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, there he is. And then you started kind
Mhm.
of giving, reading him the riot act, giving him a piece of your mind.
Yep.
And he put on tennis shoes and then he left.
And he left. And I remember thinking, good, he's out of the White House. He's gone, and that's it. And I just felt like joy and relief all at the same time.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome that you had such strong feelings in the dream. I believe this represents what I would say is the tentacles of the octopus, and the level of I don't feel like Obama represents Obama himself. He represents the influence of his regime, which is the idea of a lot of people use the term the deep state. The base level version of the word the deep state simply means the holdovers from the last administration working against the current administration. Then there's stuff that goes way, way deeper than that, that's way more entrenched and, institutionalized and all that stuff. But it's the idea that if you were president and you got fired and the American people elected me and you had people in the State Department that liked your policies better than mine, they might work against my policies in favor of your policies. And they're been entrenched there for 20 years. And so it'd be hard to root those people out and get rid of them. But what this represents is a leaving of the influence of the former administration, particularly related to his administration and the tentacles of his administration, as in the people who were his Secretary of State, the people that were his VP, the people that are in office now. I feel like there's still a hand that he has, whether it's behind the scenes or not, the hidden hand, for people that know what that means. That's still involved and pretty much in play in politics. And it's interesting that as I see you as a prophetic voice saying from the side of the American people and from the side of, a godly woman, saying this is what we don't accept as the word over this nation. And I love the fact that he's putting on tennis shoes, which to me means he's leaving with great haste.
That's what I thought.
He's running out of there.
Yeah.
His time has run out and the influence of that regime has run out. And yeah. So
like
yeah,
I said,
that's a great dream.
I don't remember my dreams very often, but when I do, they can be something else. I mean, that was pretty interesting, but I really prayed because I saw you on His Glory with Amanda Grace and Dave Scarlett, and I had gone through a period of time when I hadn't dreamt for a long period of time. And I knew it was like unusual and not normal that I could never remember my dreams. And so when I saw you in there, I prayed about it and I asked the Lord, to give me back my dreams.
Yeah.
I felt like something was blocking it, but I wasn't sure what it was.
Wow. Okay. Well, cool. I'm glad you're getting them back.
Yeah. I even had one last night, but I won't go into that.
Make sure you write them down.
Yes, that's what I have to do. I need to write it down. And believe me, I didn't even know I was going to get on, so I'm a little crazy.
You look great.
I didn't get dressed up or anything.
Oh, wow. Well, thanks for being with us, Jen.
Well, thank you. You have a good day. Good night.
You have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. Jamie. You're muted, hon.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you for doing this for me.
Absolutely.
I'm newly saved. I cried out to the Lord in January, and I've been pressing into Him. About mid-May, I had a dream. I was standing behind Moses. He had a staff. He was robed in royalty. I don't know what color it was. He had long, white, flowing hair. It was to the ground. I stood directly behind him, and I felt safe. And then I woke up praising the Lord, happy as could be. I didn't want to come back. I remember that. And then I woke up.
Wow. Okay. So were you in heaven?
I'm not sure. I also had felt that I saw myself dressed in armor. I've been seeing images in the sky in clouds of an archer. I believe I seen the Lord's heart also in a cloud, but people are telling me I'm kind of crazy, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you're crazy.
But I also had a dream on the 30th of June about a rainbow. This rainbow, I came out of my garage. It was glorious. I've never seen colors like this before. It was all there. It was just amazing. There was this big white cloud with it. I seen pitch windows of this magnificent light. That was to my right. To my left was a sound stage with a huge portal. And they were singing this song over and over. It was "Stick to Your Faith, Your Glorious Faith." I believe it was angels. But I screamed at my kids to come see this rainbow. And I went into my garage and it came upon me and I fell to the ground on my face. And yeah, it was amazing.
These sound almost like encounters. There's such a deep level of the Spirit of God hitting you. And I can tell, obviously, this touched you. You're emotional just talking about it. The presence of God is on you. A lot of times we have dreams that are at a different level and they feel like you were actually there and they're very, very vivid. The idea of standing behind Moses is the idea of being protected or covered by a very strong leader. And I feel like, and just, again, I'm happy being wrong, but I'm just going to tell you what I feel. I feel like there was a time in your life for sure where you felt exposed and uncovered and that you didn't have a leader. You didn't have somebody fighting for you, and in particular, fighting for your freedom or your release from exile. You felt like you were on your own, and like the slaves in the Hebrew slaves in Egypt, you just felt like God forgot about you. And now you're standing behind, you're covered, you're standing behind a strong leader that literally has the ability to part the Red Sea and kill the whole Egyptian army with the swing of his staff. The rainbow, of course, it speaks to the promises of God, the things that God has told you, that he's shown you. I feel like there's a lot that you've been waiting on, particularly in the area of restoration. Again, I don't know you at all, but I just feel like there's some things that God has promised you, some things that you've been waiting to see, the death of your enemies. And I don't mean that literally, but I mean it figuratively, the spirits, the demonic forces, the strongholds that have come against you, that have come against your family, that have chosen to divide, to keep you oppressed. I believe you're in a different position right now where you're entering into a time of exile. And what that requires you to do is to follow the leader, literally follow Moses. And when he strikes the ground and the Red Sea opens, you walk through, no matter, even if it's scary, but it's a coming out time. So I feel like both of these dreams are an announcement of the promise of exile and freedom and coming out with even great wealth and resources, and the promises of God for, to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So I feel like things are going to shift for you if they haven't already. And I would look forward to that because I think it's going to be just a whole new, I just hear like a whole new life for you.
Amazing.
So
I feel it too. I feel the restoration. I feel like the Lord gave me an unshakable faith. So it's amazing. Yeah.
Amen. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Jamie.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you. God bless you.
All right. Take care. Fine ports. Let's try this again. Can you hear me now? I can't hear you at all. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. I don't know if you have like headphones or something plugged in, but I see you muting and unmuting, but I can't hear a thing. I see you now. Yeah, you must be in a place where you got like really bad Wi-Fi because it's super jerky, but I think I heard you. You're muted now. Hey, can you hear me? Yeah, I can't. If you know what, if you can type up something and put it in the comments, I'll answer, but I can't hear you at all. And you keep fading in and out. Sorry about that. Let's do Mariah.
Hi, John.
Hey, Mariah, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So I have a couple dreams. I don't know if we'll have time to get to both of them, but one is for my son and one is myself, one that I had. And it feels to me like it's pretty significant. So I definitely wanted to do that one. And then there's one that I had where I went into the abyss in the ocean that I thought was significant. So if we can get to that, that'd be awesome too. But
Well, let's do your son's first, and then we got about 6 more people waiting, and then if we have time, we'll come back to you.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so his dream. So he had a dream that he was this little girl. So this little girl had an older sister. So he was the younger sister, and she had an older sister, and they had parents who divorced, and he said that, I'm trying to remember everything. He said that it's time for them to go visit their mom. And so they were having a visitation with their mom, and they realized that their mom, I don't know that they didn't realize their mom was evil, but somehow in the dream, he realized the mom was evil. So they're in a visitation with their mom, and she decides she's giving them a bath. And she knows that these 2 girls are allergic to red dye. And so she decides she's going to put red dye in this bathtub in the form of red berries and red fruit. And then I think he said something about like the older sister would help take care of the younger sister. But anyway, so that's the end of that part of the dream. So then the next scene in the dream, him and his friends from his class are like FBI agents, and they're on this, mission, and they go and they're supposed to like beat down this the front door of this house. So they beat it down, and they go in, and they realize that the people that are in this house are actually good people. And as soon as they go in, they're all on this mission together, and they start plotting and planning how they can go and like save those 2 little girls from their mom.
It's really interesting because when you were talking about the girls, when you said their parents are going through a divorce, that early in your conversation, what I heard is it's somebody in your son's class.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so God is giving him the perspective of somebody in his class. But then you went on to the FBI, they're like FBI agents breaking in to this house. They're investigators to save these little girls. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly fits with what I heard with God is revealing to him something that's happening with somebody, probably I feel like it's somebody that's close to him, somebody that's a friend to him, somebody that's in his class. There's this dynamic going on. And there's a level of discerning that needs to happen, which is the whole idea of the FBI, the investigative part. And there may need to be an intervention, but I feel like it's really interesting how God said these people are not bad people.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, and I feel like it's what's really going on is the mom is going through a very, very difficult time. And what needs to happen is the mom needs help and the kids need to be safe.
Yeah.
And so I feel like he may even know when he hears that who it is. And if he doesn't say, does anybody come to mind? Do you see a picture of anybody in your classroom? Does this resonate with anything? What he doesn't need to do is to try to figure it out. The FBI part is the idea of what we call spiritual intelligence, is the idea that God is going to drop something in his spirit or in your spirit, and they're going to know. And again, it was a team of people acting as FBI agents to kind of go and find out where the situation was, come in and intervene with the idea that they're not bad people. They're good people, and it's a redeemable situation, but there needs to be an intervention. This situation needs to be brought to the light because there could be potential danger.
When he first told me the dream, or I guess what I've just been curious ever since then, I didn't even think about the fact that it could have to do with the situation, right? Well, I did think about that because I immediately started praying for whoever these little girls were. But I also just wondered if you felt at all that it was any sort of calling dream as well, because he's always wanted to be in some sort of like military, FBI, police He's always wanted to be something like that. So I didn't know if it was also had to do with that at all.
Well, I think it's interesting because it certainly could be a calling and destiny dream or an identity and destiny dream. But I don't want to say that it is, because in the dream, he's a little girl. That doesn't speak to his identity at all.
No.
And so I want him to know that there's a very big distinction. What's happening is God wanted to illustrate a point of perspective to him. So he said, it's like being an actor. This is the part you're going to play, so you can understand from this person's perspective what they're going through. But he obviously has knowledge, like the little girls wouldn't know that their mom's about to poison them, but he knew.
Yeah.
So he knew extracurricular knowledge beyond the perspective of the little girl. And then he saw he was himself in the second part of the dream where they were going in. So it's almost like God is giving him the supernatural prophetic perspective of what's about to happen from the eyes of the little girl, with the intent of knowing what's in the mom's, I won't say heart, but in the mom's mind to do, and then giving him the intel to be able to go in. And yeah, I believe that certainly God can be using him in this way. And he may have a calling way beyond this situation.
Yeah.
But a lot of times what I see God will do is he'll set people up. So I do a lot of strategy and identity work with people like CEOs, company level, even, just regular people, pastors, whatever. And like if somebody says, how would you describe yourself? Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I said, really? Name 3 businesses you started before you were 10. Like, well, I didn't start my first company until I was 18. Well, did you mow lawns? Did you shovel snow? I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started my first business at 4. Went door to door with my radio flyer wagon loaded with strawberries my mom had just picked up at the farm. And I sold strawberries, but it was my first business. I was 4. I made $5. I felt like I was king of the world because it was, bazooka gum was what I wanted from it, but it's that whole idea. So a lot of times God, like, success leaves clues, and so does identity. He may get to the point where he's going to Quantico and he's going to remember the situation in his life, and it's going to be part of his identity, because he's going to realize even at that part in his life that it was God that gave him the intel and God that gave him the answers through what we call spiritual intelligence, so he could intervene in a situation and correct something before something bad happens. So yeah, absolutely. It could be an identity and a calling dream too.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. What a great dream.
Do we have time for the other one or no?
Let me get a couple more people
Okay.
that have it. There's people that have been waiting for like 2 hours. So if you can stay in the studio, and if we have time, we can come back to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Paula. Hey, how you doing? You're muted.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank
Hey.
you, Mom. I know you've had a long night already, so I really appreciate you taking this dream.
Absolutely.
Because the first part is just stumping me. Okay, so I'm going to read it because it's a little bit long, but I was with my husband Todd at a warehouse, which seemed to be our business in the dream. We have a business in real life. It's a full service landscape business, but we don't have a warehouse. So we're in this warehouse. It's our business in the dream. And this guy named Steve Alter was there. And he has in real life a similar business. He has a tree trimming business. So Todd asked me to take care of Steve for him. And Steve apparently had sold his business in the dream, and he was needing a temporary place to finalize some business. And he wanted me to bill something, last minute bills, and to close out some of his accounts. So he gives me this number to bill. It was 274-5064-1111. And the middle number, I'm not sure if it's 5064 or 506 or 504, but those numbers were in there. It was 50 something. So when I went to bill it, the number didn't work, and I realized it was a dead number. And then, so I was on my computer in the dream doing research, and all of a sudden I see this, I'm in an aerial view over a cemetery. And I realized the 274 was the address of a bunch of mausoleum buildings. And the 5064 was the building within the group of buildings. And then the 111 was the box of ashes where this guy where I was supposed to bill, and I realized he was dead. So when I went back to the warehouse, I explained this whole thing to Steve and what I discovered. And then he says nonchalantly, like, oh yeah, that's my brother's number. Like he gave it to me by mistake, his dead brother. That was the first part. So then I was coming, next scene is I'm coming back. I remember coming back to the warehouse from wherever I was again working. And I found Steve in the warehouse, and our warehouses have these big garage doors, and it was open. And Steve was kind of sitting in the dark, and it was in the daytime, but it was all shady in there because the lights weren't on. He asked me to turn on the lights. I said, sure, the switch is on the door. So I go to push the garage door opener, even though it was already open, to turn on lights, and I realized the lights didn't go on. So I was doing some investigation. I went around on the side and realized it was to the side door. Let me see, I pushed it and the lights didn't go on. So I said, that's weird. I went outside to take a look and realized that it had opened the side garage door instead of the main door. So apparently I fixed it, and then I showed him how to turn on the lights. The lights went on. And this is the last scene. We were all three, me, my husband, and Steve, were in the building. Todd was sweeping the floor, and I was putting away stuff on the shelves and organizing it. And I said to Steve, do you want to buy our business? As kind of like a joke, but serious. And Todd looked at me as he was sweeping, and he was like, no, like shaking his head, no, like this, as if to indicate to me, don't be so bold as to ask Steve that, and that's typical of our relationship. I'm very outspoken, very bold, and he's a lot more conservative. So I did some research and tried to break down some of these symbols, especially the numbers, and I took Steve's name. So I don't know if you want to hear that part, or if you just want to kind of prophetically.
Sure. Well, what part are you stuck on?
The first part, the whole thing about me helping him out, and the brother, the number being dead, and the whole thing. And this is what I did. I looked up Steve Alter's name, the meaning of it. He does have a similar business as ours. Incidentally, we both previously in 2007 sold our businesses, both of our businesses, to the same gentleman. And they kept it until like 2014 and breached contract and didn't pay us the last bit of money. Sort of like what was in the dream, with Steve. He didn't get the last bit. He was uncollectible because it was dead or something. So both of us took back our businesses. We're both running our businesses again for breach of contract. That was in real life. I looked up Steve Alter's name. Steve means crown of wealth or victory. Like in the Greeks, they used to put the wreath on the head for victory, and that was mentioned in Altar. This is where it got really interesting. Altar, I looked up the name, in the first part of the word, ALT, means old. And this was a name, Altar was a name given to a sibling who had a sibling that died, and they gave this to ward off evil. This name Altar. I actually found this on the internet, which was weird. So in the dream, he has this sibling. The number he gave me was a dead sibling. And so the other part about the light going on the switch and the sweeping of the floor and me organizing, that's all kind of, I can get that, turn the lights on in the business. There's something shady, something dark where we need to flip on the lights, I guess. But the first part really had me stumped. And I did get Hebrew Strong's 274. I looked it up. It means prolonged life, prolong. But I don't know what 1111 means. I mean, I know it's a mystery, a prophetic number, but I just was wondering if you had any insight as to.
Was it 1111?
I wrote that. I'm pretty sure it was 1111 or 111, but I lean towards more 1111. I don't know why. Because, you know, by the time I woke up the next day and remembered all these numbers, I was like, and all this.
When you said 50, I heard 50, as in Hawaii 50, as in police. So when you started describing the relationship between selling both of your businesses to the same guy, I was almost going to interrupt you and then say there was a legal matter that happened after that, right? And you said, you know, and that was before you said that we had to take our businesses back. And that was based on the number 50 in the middle of the transaction, or without the transaction being completed. There was a 50, which again represents police or legal involvement. And so I discerned that without you saying that. But then you just confirmed it. The 1111, the first thing that comes to mind with that is in when was it? I think it was February or March of 1963. JFK signed into law Executive Order 11110. And it took the printing power of the Federal Reserve out of the hands of the Federal Reserve and put it into the hands of the U.S. Treasury, allowing them to print silver certificates. There's people that say that's why they killed them. But it has to do with a theme that we're seeing tonight of a shift in economic systems, of going back to something of inherent value like the gold standard. This was obviously the silver standard. And it's interesting that there's been a shift not only in you and Todd's life and business, but also in Steve's business as well, as it was related to an economic transaction of selling a wealth creation machine, which is you both sold businesses. Yeah, Cecilia is pinging on this one because she had the dreams about the economic systems. But that has to do with both you and Todd sold your business. Steve sold his business. In the middle of that, there was a legal matter that caused the reversion back to the original owner. Somebody else had a dream about 50-cent pieces. 50 represents the year of Jubilee. 50 is also in the middle section of the number. That has to do with reverting back to the original ancestral owners and the idea of debt freedom. Wow. So that actually happened in your life related to you and Todd and Steve together. So it's interesting that all of those people are either in the garage or trying to get the light fixed. The mausoleum represents something that was dead. I think what it represents of being dead was the idea of selling your business and being done with that part of your life and then having to take it back. Just like it was the idea that, well, this is this guy's grave plot, but it's not. It's actually his brother's. So you think that this situation is about this guy that's dead, and he's not really dead. It's his brother that's dead. So there's kind of sort of a resurrection. But what happened is it was just really fake news. And that's kind of what happened with your business. You're like, we sold our business. No, fake news. The guy didn't pay us. We got to take it back to work. Here we go. Same thing with Steve. So it's interesting the dynamic that happens in relation to the economics of the wealth creation machines about your businesses and not the partnership, but kind of the similarities of what's happened in Steve's life with what happened in your and Todd's life. So I think that's what the first part of the dream represents. And I think you're on the right track if you write all of this stuff out and begin to go through and pull out each symbol. It's a complex dream. There's a lot of moving parts. There's three dreams or three distinct scenes. And so there's a whole lot more than we can unpack here. We could focus on it for an hour and maybe make it through the numbers, and that's about it. But I would look down those paths, look down the paths of Hawaii, the idea of 50 being police, like Hawaii 50, the legal matter, 50 also being a legal matter in the idea of the reversion back to original ancestral owners, the year of Jubilee, the forgiveness of debt. I would look up Executive Order 11110, and I think there's a nugget in there that's going to speak to you. I don't know what it is. I've actually done a search on 1111 in the Bible, found every occurrence of 1111 in the Bible. One of the ones that sticks out the most is it talks about something about going up to the mountains and the hills and taking land, and it's a dream about abundance and prosperity, or not a dream, it's a verse about abundance and prosperity. So I think just to kind of give you some pointers in your journey with unpacking this, God is speaking to you about the financial part of your life, and in particular, the wealth creation side of your life and your businesses, and not just yours, but also the connection with what happened with Steve. Steve is in this, I believe, to point to the idea of the transaction where you both sold to the same buyer and then the deal went south and you had to take it back. So I feel like God is highlighting that, and there's something that he wants to do with that. Part of it is he wants to turn on the light, which means he wants to show you some clarity around that situation.
Right.
The other part is you're trying to put your business back up for sale. You're telling Steve, hey, buy the business. And Todd's like, hey, what are you doing? Don't be so bold.
Well, we've been considering, and we just still have it because timing, but we're kind of ready to move on.
Yeah.
And God's doing a lot of other things too. So I didn't know. I didn't know too if it had anything to do with like both of our, like we both had sibling companies that kind of, like you say, died, but they were really resurrected, So I just, the whole thing, it's so funny when it was within the first week of taking the sim class, and I've been teaching on dream interpretation for years, and
Wow.
God gives me this dream that's like way more, like it requires this intel that you're teaching, and it just cracked me up. I'm like, wow, Lord, you move very quickly here. You're pressing me with, trying to figure this out. So,
well, he had to get you to the next level. He's like, you know all the basic stuff. We gotta take you in the graduate program. I feel like the keys are the numbers.
Yeah.
And this situation that had to do with selling the business and getting it back. I feel like if you press into that, God is going to give you, and I feel like you're looking for, like you said, you're looking for an answer in your business. I feel like this dream set contains the answer you're looking for. When you get done with it, and it's a part of the working it out process, you're going to know, okay, definitely we need to sell, or we need to do this, or we need to reposition somehow. And it's going to be confirmed not only in your spirit, but in Todd's spirit. And he's not going to be like, hey, don't say that. It's going to be like, yep, we agree. Let's do this. And we'll, move forward, move on, whatever it is.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much.
You got it. I encourage you just to keep trucking. You're doing great.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Paula. Bye-bye. Jim.
Hello, John.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. We really enjoy the dream. My wife and I enjoy the dreams from the Bible. My wife is way ahead of me. I've only listened to 4, and she's up at 14. So eventually I'll get there.
That's awesome.
Well, I've had 3 dreams, and they seem to relate to each other, and they all tie into the time that was on my phone at the moment I woke up. So the first dream is not very long, but it is longer than the second and third, which are very short. And I'm gonna read that. So on June 12th, it was early morning. I was arriving to work at a building where we used to work. Our company used to be 25 years ago. So pulling into the parking lot, others were also arriving. I was evidently carpooling with a Chinese colleague of mine, and that was kind of out of place then too, because she didn't come into work until years later. But there was this vision of an airplane flying above with fireworks emanating from it. And it was just known that Trump was on it. And somehow I was told to tune into CBS. So I was trying to tune in on the radio. And it was known that an announcement had been made that Trump was president. And I say that it was known because I didn't hear that on the radio, but it was just apparent that that's what was happening. There was an attitude of celebration from everyone, even though there were just people in cars arriving. I was driving a VW van. Again, that was from something that we had from the 70s. So that was kind of out of place too. I got out of the van. I took my shirt off. I raised my arms. I'm cheering. We wondered whether or not we were going to get the day off because of this celebration. I dropped the lady off at the building. So I guess I got back in the van, drove over, dropped her off, and then I had to go park again. And I saw another colleague. Again, he was from later years, but he's more of a, he leans to the left, and he wasn't impressed with the decision about Trump, and he just made a statement that he was concerned about how the Muslims would feel. So kind of odd. That's all I remember from the dream. So later, when I woke up, my phone read 4:59, and I went back to sleep. I woke up 59 minutes later, and the clock read 5:58. And immediately, I thought of the first time, 4:59 and 5:58, and I thought of 4 and 5 for the hours, 45 referring to Trump, and I thought of 59, 58, and I wondered if it was a countdown. And so I thought, so I got up, and I because it was time for me to get up then, but I looked at the calendar, and if it were 59 days from June 12th, that would be August 10th. If it were 58 days from the day of the dream, it would be August 9th. So that was that. I wrote it down. 5 days later, it was June 17th, I dreamt of, I was underneath our deck. We've been having this deck project going on, and I was looking through all the stones. They were in my hand, and I was noticing the different colors of the stones. I'm down on my hands and knees, and I'm just shifting the rocks around. And all of a sudden, there's this cavity in the stones on the ground, like the size of a cup. And there was a spider there, and it startled me awake. And I mean, I hate spiders, and I gasped out loud, jumped out of bed, and I looked at the clock on my phone, and it read 1:53. And I forgot to mention this, but I don't know if I mentioned it, but on that first dream, on the second time I woke up, I immediately thought that it was the countdown. I guess I did say that. Mm-hmm. So it was 1:53. So I went back to bed, of course. But when I woke up, 53 days from June 17th was August 9th, or would be August 9th. And if you take the hours again, I thought about this at 1:53 in the morning. I thought about the 45, and then you take the hour of 1, so it's 45:1, and these minutes seem to count down to the same date. So time went on, days went on, and just recently, July 1st, the night before, I had been praying, and I've done this before. I've been praying for confirmation about my previous dreams. And so that night I went to bed, and again, I was under the deck. The stones were again visible. This time a flying bug startled me. I awoke and immediately looked at the time, and it was 1:23. And again, immediately I thought, was this an answer to the confirmation I was seeking, meaning that the counting was as easy as 1, 2, 3. So that's it. Wondering if you can, and I am a dreamer, but I never remember my dreams. But these were, you can bring that back. remind me? Oh, okay. My wife was giving me a reminder. Yeah, so I'm not. I am a dreamer, but I don't remember my dreams. But that one with the celebration of Trump winning was very clear, and I remembered it. Wrote it down the next morning.
Interesting. Well, there's several thoughts that I have. First of all, you're going to have more dreams and you're going to remember them probably from tonight on. I don't know why, it just happens. People have a conversation about dreams with me or people that are in my spiritual intelligence mentorship, and their dream life just explodes, probably because we pray on a consistent basis that God would do that God would speak to us in dreams. And there's just something when you get around an anointing like that it replicates. So look for that. I would suggest be very intentional about writing everything down. I like how you wrote down the times. I think God is speaking to you about times and seasons. The first thing I was impressed with was the going to work dream and the carpooling dream. The idea that you're working, you're going to work with colleagues that you're in a time frame that they're not at your company yet. And that happened several times. And to me, that just means the times and seasons are out of order. The idea of going to work is like going back to work. You think of 45, going back to work, like getting back to work for the country. So I think it's like a foreshadowing of what's coming with later in the dream, which is the celebration. When you said fireworks from a plane, I heard flares. Now flares, I'm ex-military, so flares are what, if there's a MiG or another enemy plane tracking Air Force One and they have a missile lock and they want to shoot, we launch flares, which is, if you've ever seen like the big, they look like fireworks and they create a big amount of heat and a vast amount of noise and flash, because what they're supposed to do is divert the missiles that are going after the plane, and then the plane veers off, and so they create an explosion in the air to divert the missile and the attack.
But I will add that those fireworks or sparklers or whatever it was part of the feeling of the celebration. So there wasn't any feeling of an attack. Not saying that it couldn't be, but I'm just saying that was all part of that general sense that there was a celebration going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like certainly it was a celebration, but I feel like it's also a diversion.
Okay.
Because that's what flares are. It's like, watch the birdie, and then they go off in another direction. I think it's really interesting because the part where you're talking about being under the patio or the porch or whatever, and you're seeing these things, the first one is the spider, which you have an aversion to spiders, and so that kind of spoke to you. And the second one is this flying bug, is the idea that in the event that first part of your dream comes true and 45 is restored to the White House, there's still going to be some creepy crawly things that need to be cleaned up, and they're going to be running for cover, and they're going to have to be rooted out. And that's where the real work begins. It's also interesting that there was a person of a particular nationality with you in the car, the first person that you represented, and it wasn't her time to be there. It wasn't her time to be at work. Work can represent a place of destiny and dominion, certainly a place of economic prosperity, but also a place of authority. And for the Chinese to be infiltrated into this country and be running things at a high level, it's not time for that. And so again, the first part of the dream is the times and seasons are out of order. I'm dreaming in this time frame of this person, and they're not there yet, but yet here they are in my dream. And so I think what God is showing you is He's showing you kind of a complex but somewhat picture of what I believe is in the process of, according to the dream, what I believe is in the process of happening or actively happening or happening soon. And it's the idea of times getting aligned, of coming into order, of certainly there's a dichotomy of celebration and things that are not so pleasant that have to be dealt with. We'd rather all be standing outside, waving our hands in the air, looking at the fireworks and the plane and all of that. But yet here you are under the patio, and there's this flying bug, and there's the spider, and there's, you have to deal with the repercussions of, and it's not that the plane is what's causing these bugs to be where they are. It's just the fact that you're doing work and you're moving stones, which reminds me of building in particular. You think of Nehemiah 5, which is building the wall, right? And grabbing the stones and having the stone and the trowel in one hand and the sword in the other. And it's the idea that there's a level of warfare with rebuilding, particularly rebuilding back a country, a city, a wall, a level of protection and defense that's been destroyed. And so what you're seeing it's not as big of a threat as you would think, even though you don't like spiders, that, spiders aren't probably going to mortally wound you. It's not like an elephant or a tiger, but it's just something that tends to operate more in fear than anything else. And I think that accurately describes a lot of the forces that have been at work, particularly on the forefront in the country in the last year and a half. It's all been a fear game. It's all been a bug, of course, can represent a virus, can represent a bioweapon. The idea of a spider can represent a delivery system of, you think of how do spiders attack, they bite you. It's a jab, it's a shot in the arm kind of a thing. It's the thing that probably we should be afraid of more than the bug itself, and so there's levels of depth that God is speaking to you about things, everything from the Chinese to the ideas being out of order, or the time frames being out of order, to the things that are running and hiding that need to be rooted out, to the idea of rebuilding the wall and having the sword with you while you do that, and addressing these things that I believe have to do with what happened in 2020 in particular, and rooting out these forces of evil in our country. And so I feel like it's a mid-conversation dream. I feel like because it's hard to put actionable intelligence into those things because you don't really control those things. What's interesting is you had a hand and you were the guy driving the van and dropping people off. But they were people that it wasn't their time, and it was times and seasons out of order. But I feel like the actionable intelligence side for you is the two pieces that you were doing. One is driving a van, which means leading other people, dropping other people off at a place of identity or destiny or purpose. And two, being part of somebody that is in a position of wanting to build, but maybe not rooting out, but at least exposing some of the swamp creatures that were left over. So I don't have any idea what you do, but hopefully that speaks to you, because I feel like that's part of what the dream is saying is kind of get ready. You're going to have a peace. Things are going to shift. When they shift, they're going to shift quickly. Not everybody's going to be happy that they shifted. There's going to be people that are going to be rooted out and need to be removed. And then there's other people that are going to need to be dropped off and placed in a different level of identity and purpose.
Very interesting. I didn't realize there would be that much to say about it. Thank you very much, John.
Absolutely. So great to meet you, Jim. Thanks for being on board with us tonight.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Dolores.
Hey, John. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, we lost Dolores. Carol. You're muted.
Hi, John. How are you?
Hey, Carol.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for taking my call. I had a dream. This is in May. And I was in a bus. I was driving a bus that was full, or bus, a van, minivan, whatever. It was full of kids, children. They were faceless. Except I recognized one child, and his name was Chris, and he graduated with my daughter, which I don't know that I had about. I was dropping them off somewhere, but I couldn't get them to the place because there was a lion on the loose. And so they couldn't get out of the car or the van. So we ended up driving around this park-like area where this lion was. And this lion was skinny, scrawny, but it would devour anything in its path. So I'm traveling with these kids, and I tell them, you guys lock the doors. I was really concerned about somebody falling out of the van. So we're just traveling around this park-like area, and this lion sees like right through us, doesn't see us at all. And all of a sudden, I am reporting on what this lion is doing. So, okay, now this lion is here, now this lion is there, and I'm reporting it like on a CB or something like that. I don't know, what some kind of radio. And at one point we drive, we're going through this like park area, and we see another little critter, and all of us kind of laugh and go, wow, he's lucky to be alive. And at another point, this lion had another lion in its mouth, but it was dead, and it was skinny, scrawny also. End of that. Flash to a 2-story building. I'm in the top floor. There's kids in the building, but they're down on the first floor. And there's a fire on the second floor. And I'm there, and there's firemen there. And finally, the firemen aren't really doing very much. And the fire is getting out of control. It's getting hot, and it's getting too big. And I'm like, I get on the radio once again, and I tell the fire captain or dispatcher, I don't know. I said, look, this fire is too hot. It's too big. These kids need to get out now. And the end.
So you're driving a van with kids, and you're dropping them off. There's a lion on the loose that's a skinny, scrawny lion, but it's a fierce lion, and you're afraid that it could attack the kids.
Right.
Okay, so then the second part.
On it. I'm reporting what it's doing. Like it's in this area, or it's to somebody. I don't know who I'm talking to on the radio type thing. And then when we're in the house, when I'm in that house, I say, hey, we got to get these kids out of this house, regardless if there's a lion outside or not. We got to get them out.
Okay. And then you see the lion, you see a little critter, and then you see a lion with another lion in his mouth. And then you end up in a 2-story building that's on fire, and the firefighters aren't really doing anything.
Correct.
Okay. I feel like this is a warning dream, and it's a warning of potential danger. The lion is potential danger. It feels imminent, and so you want to protect the people and not put them in a place of danger. The idea of a building being on fire is the idea of more of an immediate danger, but there's first responders on the scene, but they're not really taking it seriously, and they're not doing their job. I feel like because it's kids in the van and you're driving, it's related to people that you have a level of authority over, or you have a level of responsibility for. It doesn't necessarily mean kids per se, but somebody that you would help drive them to their destiny in a sense, whether it's somebody that you're teaching in a Bible study or whatever. The idea of a scrawny lion, it reminds me of the quote in scripture that talks about the strong man of David. And it talks about one of them was named Benaiah. And basically his claim to fame was he jumped in a pit with a lion on a snowy day and killed it. There's actually a book called In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. And so it's the idea that there's 2 scrawny lions. One has been captured by the other and is dead. And then there's this other lion that's still potentially on the loose. And then the idea of the fire. That's interesting. You said it was a 2-story building.
Yeah.
So 2 stories means there's 2 stories. There's 2 different things that are going on that we need to discern what they are. So they're not necessarily, when you get to the building that's on fire, do the kids go in with you?
No.
Yeah.
It was like a totally separate.
Yeah. So it's like 2 different situations, but one is talking about the idea of something outside that could attack. and you want to be careful not to place people in that situation where they would be vulnerable to attack. And the other one is something that is immediate, that this building is burning down. There's first responders, but they're not doing their job. In the first part, you're reporting back like where the lion is. So what you are is you're like a prophetic seer that sees these situations, or you're a discerner that sees these situations, and you're able to warn people. In the first one, you're able to control a little bit more because you just don't let the kids out of the van. They're people under your purview, under your authority, but you're still also reporting back to other people to warn them as well. In the second one, it's not your job to put out the fire, but the people whose job are there and they're not doing it. And so then your job at that point is to be like, hey guys, what's up? We need to get this done. But it's not directly under your purview. So I feel like what God is showing you is, first of all, I think there's 2 warnings, and they're not anything you need to be scared about, because it's like when you pull out in front of somebody you didn't see and they blow their horn at you. My friend always says, well, if they honked, they saw me. So it might scare you or startle you, but the point is they saw you. So there's the warning, and God is showing you in the dream, you're going to get the warning. You're going to understand the warning, and you're going to report it to the right people. But it's certainly something to look for. But the broader picture is, I think it speaks to your identity and purpose. The idea of being a watch woman on the wall, being somebody that God is going to show and give coordinates to, give, Mark Batterson's the one that wrote In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. But you're going to be given intel that is going to warn other people, and I feel like it's going to literally save lives. And so it's something that, if you don't already, I would write every dream that you get down from now until you leave Earth. I would press into dream interpretation. I would look very seriously at the dreams, because this idea of you being a prophetic voice and warning people or being a discerner came through a dream. It's not an accident that it came through a dream. So I believe it means that God is going to give you other warnings of things that can happen, that can prevent destruction or harm from people, but also that can expose people that are other watchmen that should be doing their job and are not. And God is going to give you that intel specifically to say something, to say it tactfully, and to handle it correctly. But I think you have a calling in the prophetic.
Oh, wow. My mom was a prophetic. So, well, thank you so much. That is not where I was going with that dream at all. So I am so glad I got through and talked to you.
Well, I'm glad you talked to us. Yeah, that was awesome.
So,
cool dream.
Awesome. Thank you, John, very much.
All right. Take care, Carol.
Good night. You too.
Good night. Dolores, let's try you again. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
There you are. Yes.
Okay.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you so much. I pressed the wrong button, the cam mic button in the center. Okay. I have a dream that I had on March 25th, and I call it elevation. And I thought one way about it, and I'm not sure now. So I'm going to give it to you and see what you say. It's the first time that all my family is in the dream. There was a personal notice that our family was being picked up and expected to come, and Air Force One was already awaiting us outside. This was unexpected by us, and we frantically began to dress and prepare ourselves. There was a little chaos as we rushed to get dressed. All my children, my eldest, Basilica, Sophia, and my son, Joshua, and myself, and John, but I never saw my husband, but I felt like he was there. We were all there. Sophia, Basilica, they both quickly prepared themselves. And I also finished dressing and quickly found shoes. I saw a large closet and many shoes, and I searched around to find the right pair. And then I also felt to see if I had my earrings on. Joshua was taking longer than the rest of us, and I kept calling for all to hurry up. I looked out the window and noticed the airplane outside on the right with attendants patiently waiting. The girls quickly went through their music and pulled out what was needed. Their music was in the middle of the floor, and they opened the book and they grabbed what they needed, and they were done. Basilica was the first to go down the steep stairs of what appeared to be our apartment, and it seemed like an upper room to me. So I stood on the landing, I looked to my left, and I watched her go down these steep stairs from the top landing, and I was amazed because she had a baby car seat in her left hand and another bag with supplies in her right hand, and she wasn't holding the handrail but seemed secure. Now, Joshua was rushing around, and I looked inside the apartment, and he was rushing to finish up. And then he dressed in a nice long sleeve dress shirt, slacks, and tie. We all seemed to dress for spring weather. After everyone had gone, I saw myself walking toward the plane. Now, I also remember that Joshua, as he was getting ready, I thought about Joseph because it was like it was all of a sudden, and he's getting dressed up in this suit and tie. But I remember that I thought, oh, he shaved as well. He shaved and, got himself ready. And I saw now everybody had gone, and I saw myself walking toward the plane with John, my husband, but I never saw him. But he was guiding me on my right hand. I approached a short set of stairs leading to a platform up against the plane. And at the top, I had to bend over slightly before entering the plane. And that was it.
Wow. This is really interesting. There's a whole lot there. This is probably one of the dreams we should do the Joseph method on, just because we want to hit every piece. I want to give you kind of the overview, but particularly because it relates to all your family members, and each one of them has a piece, like the kids' music and the music being in the middle of the floor and them getting ready, and Joshua and your husband guiding you but not being in your line of sight. There's just a lot. The overview is Air Force One's coming to pick you up. So it's the idea of standing before kings, of actually riding along with them, which to ride on Air Force One, you can be an advisor to a president. That doesn't mean you get to ride on Air Force One. There's a level of priority, probably even a level of friendship, a level of relationship that goes beyond an institutionalized relationship that would allow you access to the president's plane. So I feel like part of what this is saying is God is giving you a heads up to get ready. It's also interesting that you were looking for shoes. Shoes represents readiness, right? Ephesians 6, the readiness of the gospel of peace, the ability to speak with authority and with godly authority into the life of somebody else, to share the good news with them. And you had a whole plethora of different kind of shoes, and you wanted to pick the right kind.
Yeah.
It's interesting that your kids are looking for music, because to me, what I saw was the idea that they would be playing music for the president. Was that what you saw as well?
That's what I thought at the beginning, and then I wasn't sure, because each one of us have serious giftings, separate from each other. So it was really odd because I've never dreamt with all my children together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a family identity and calling dream. And I think, again, what I would do is I'd write it down and break out each person and then see what their piece is and what that represents to their identity and destiny. But what's interesting is that you were all going on Air Force One. It's the idea that you have a multi-generational calling of standing before kings. And that's probably the biggest takeaway. There's pieces about being ready and having the right clothes and the kids having the music, and the whole idea of the kids having the music. I think of David playing before Saul, and the idea of ministering to kings on a different level in a soothing, artistic way of some sort. So yeah, I would really break down each person in particular. It's a great dream, but it's, to sum it up, your whole family has a calling to stand before kings, minister to kings, ride along with kings, be in the company of the president and his family, which I think is just it's just phenomenal. It's a dream that you should take to heart. It's a dream that you should begin to prepare for. It's a dream that you should dissect to the nth degree and begin to speak the identity and the destiny over yourself, your husband, your kids, and let them know that this is a part of what God's called us to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw even with my daughter, she had the car seat. And so I saw that as multi-generational, you know, that going down
talking
as well.
about the grandkids too.
Yeah.
So it's just beyond the 2 generations. It's 3 generations. I mean, it's a generational calling. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have or haven't looked back into your ancestry to see if you've had any advisors or people that have stood before kings or walked along kings before. It wouldn't surprise me if that was in your bloodline.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Lord's been speaking to me prophetic through prophets and so on, and saying that just recently that God is going to download certain things that I didn't know through my dreams, and they didn't even know I was a dreamer. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect, but it's making me a little shaky. It's like, it's just like, anyway, but I will pray more about it.
That's amazing. I'm excited for you, Dolores. And thanks for sharing that with me. You and John. I mean, it was so good to meet you guys in Tampa. And wow, I mean, that's huge. This is one of those dreams when you do a dossier on you and your family. This is definitely one of the ones because it's multi-generational and it's a dream of identity and destiny. It's one that you would definitely want to include.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
I'm sorry
Dolores.
it's so late.
That's okay.
All right.
Have a good night.
Good night.
All right. Our last one tonight, Felicia. Thanks for waiting so long.
Yeah, no problem. How are you, John?
Good. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thank you for taking my dream. I have 2, and I'll make them as quick as possible. Both of them are recurring dreams. One recurring dream I've had since I was a little girl of being surrounded by snakes. There are snakes everywhere in my environment. The second recurring dream is I have written down, and I'll read it. For the last 2 years, I've had recurring dreams about a young man that I used to date. He and I broke up in 2008, and we haven't spoken since. The overall theme across the dreams is the same. There is a strong sense of anticipation or desire between the 2 of us to reconnect. Of all the dreams I've had of him over the last couple of years, 2 in particular stood out to me. One I had a few months ago, and one I had about 2 weeks ago now. The one I had a few months ago included his wife and son. The young man, his wife, and son were camping in a tent together, and for some reason, I was in the area with them. I remember when I looked into the tent, she was embracing their son, and snakes began to come out of her head, almost like the
Medusa.
Yes, exactly. The second dream, the one I had 2 weeks ago, included the young man as well as mutual friends and family. We seemed to be in some sort of banquet hall for an event, and everyone, our friends and family, everyone was full of anticipation for the 2 of us to reconnect. It was as if they knew something was going to happen, and they were curious to see how we would respond to each other. Towards the end of the dream, he and I finally reconnected, and when we met, he was very happy. He got down on one knee as if he was about to propose, and he opens a small gift box, and out of the box bursts some sort of brown spice, maybe like cocoa, cumin, something like this, and confetti. He then looked at me and said, "The best is yet to come." Also, the other day in real life, my mother just coincidentally purchased a shirt for me to wear to the beach, and the shirt says, "The best is yet to come." And that, I just kind of took it as a, I guess, affirmation of whatever it is God's trying to communicate to me.
I think the message is the best is yet to come. Well, thanks for joining us. Have a good night. No, I'm kidding. Wow. So the Medusa part, I got mixed up with. So it was the guy that you used to date.
Yep.
And then people were wanting you to get back together. And then he ends up in a place where there's this woman and he's interacting with her somehow. And then snakes come out of her head. What was that about?
It's his wife. It's his wife. He's married, has children with her. They were camping and I was camping in the same area. I went to go see them for some reason in their tent. I peeked my head in their tent and they're there with their son. And she's suddenly just has all these snakes coming out of her head.
So it was an intense encounter.
Yeah.
Since they're intense.
Wow. I never thought about that.
The other thing I thought of too is when you look at Medusa, you turn to stone. And to me, it's the idea of Lot's wife. And I feel like God is saying, don't look back. Don't put yourself in the situation of what if, or what about this, or what about that. He's married, he's moved on, you're in, wherever you are. I don't know your history. So, but, you turn back, you look back, you turn to stone. So even if, and don't go down the road of, because it's easy for people to go down the road of, well, she's a bad person and she has snakes and he needs to be protected. And we need that. It's just, it's not your place. It's not for you to touch. And even looking in that direction, which means focusing your attention can, first of all, it can kill you with the idea of with the idea of Medusa, but figuratively it stops your forward momentum, and the idea of looking at Medusa relates to the idea of Lot's wife looking back at Sodom and Gomorrah. And of course she turned into a pillar of salt and she didn't go into the place of deliverance. Lot and his daughters did, but she never did. She was stuck there in that place. And you can get stuck in a place forever. That's what the enemy wants to do. He wants to look back and have regrets over past relationships and things that are already water under the bridge and be stuck there in a place where other people are moved on and we're, feeling like we need to intervene in their lives or do this or do that. And it's so I just think it's God just letting you know that keep your focus on what lies ahead for you and the great things that he has for you and what he's already doing in your life and your family and all of that. And just a warning. And it's a very vivid warning. I mean, it's a very graphic, especially if you don't like snakes. Snakes come out of the head of your former boyfriend or whatever, his wife, is kind of just like, wow, that's a pretty graphic symbol. But I think it's God just wanting you to be refocused on what lies ahead. And again, it's not that it's your own thoughts, but the enemy will be the one to try to come in and attack you in any weird way to throw you off track of your purpose and your destiny. And we don't want that to happen.
Cool.
Make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Maria Q, are you ready? Maria, I'm just going to take Maria's or Fineport if we can get you back in. I know, I don't know, it was just technical difficulties, so it may not work. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. But yeah, that wasn't my stomach. Oh, the feedback was your stomach. You're hungry. I'm hungry too. I haven't had dinner. I'm hungry. So yeah, we're at 3 hours and 38 minutes. Fineport or Maria Q, if you can log in, I'll take your dream right now. Other than that, we're probably going to call the evening. Thank you so much for being a part. We love doing these. We want to do them once a week or once every other week. We're doing a lot of planning for the Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship. We're doing a Spiritual Intelligence Mentorship round 2. And we're also doing the first class again as well for those who didn't get in. We're building a community of people in spiritual intelligence, which is way beyond dream interpretation. Again, it's just the idea of dream interpretation is like interpreting a sticky note, and dream and spiritual intelligence is the idea of using a plethora of sources of supernatural information, whether it's word of knowledge, word of wisdom, prophecy, discernment, dreams, visions, and bringing them all together and saying, this is the fuller picture of what God is saying. It's based on two things. One is the idea of, if we really believe that God speaks to us in these ways, why isn't there a full-time intelligence agency advising the President of the United States? It's a conversation I had with a friend of mine about 2 or 3 years ago, and it stayed with me. Other people have had dreams that have kind of pushed us in the direction of, well, why don't we build that then? And also the idea of what happened in 2020. There was so much of a disparity in the prophetic between what people were saying and what was happening. And people were backing up on prophetic words, and some people were quitting the ministry because things didn't happen the way they thought they would. And so I really began to just kind of press in and say, God, what is all this chaos in the prophetic? And he kept taking me back to 1 Corinthians 13. Now we see through a mirror dimly, or through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now we know in part, but then we'll know fully, just as I have been fully known. And if you take that verse apart in detail and look at every word, there's so much depth to it. But it's the idea that I think in the prophetic, in a lot of cases, and even in dreams, we've operated on the idea that we've operated kind of on the idea that if God gives us a word or a dream, this is the word, this is the dream, this is what he's saying over the nation at this point. And what we really need to do is we need to take all the pieces and put them together. I don't know that it's ever been done, frankly. I can't find a place in recorded history where there's been a group, more than a couple of people that are prophets that have decided to, well, like, maybe the Kansas City prophets, I don't even know if they did it, but a group of prophets that decided to be in community and share information. And I know there's certain groups that are doing that, but what they don't do is, at least that I haven't seen, is they don't analyze, they don't interpret the dreams. They just share dreams or they share prophecies, but they don't get into the depth of pulling out the meat, using the Joseph method, interpreting the dreams, looking at everything, one dream in relief from a prophetic word with what's going on in real life, with putting this level of intelligence grade intel together, times, dates, locations, actionable intelligence, resources that then can be used to further the kingdom of God, but also can be used to run nations, that can be used to advise presidents, heads of state, can be used to seat cabinets so people know that they have advisors around them that they can trust. It's been used to make policy decisions. We've shared, especially in the spiritual intelligence mentorship. There's a lot of stuff I can share in the mentorship I can't share openly on YouTube that goes out to anybody. And that's why, if you're super interested in even dream interpretation, take our Sim 1 course, because it's a deeper dive into dream interpretation than we have time to do in the Dreams Through the Bible series or in this. By the way, if you like this and you're looking for more, the Dreams Through the Bible series is completely free. We have all 21 episodes on my YouTube channel. Start at the beginning at episode 1. We go through every single dream in the Bible. We go through all of the other verses related to dreams, the controversial stuff. What about false dreams? What about false prophets? What about this? What about demonic dreams, soul dreams? We hit every single thing related to dreams from a biblical basis. You'll get a really solid biblical foundation of the idea of dreams, and your head will probably explode. Mine did, and I was the one teaching it. God was revealing things as we went through it. But if you've done that, or if you want more at a deeper level, send me an email, dreamlifedecoded@gmail.com. Tell me why you want to be in the mentorship program, what you bring to the table. And we're building a community of people that are interpreting dreams and prophetic words. And some of the stuff we're working on, I'm telling you, it's mind-blowing. It's incredible. Some of it is ripped right off the pages of the headlines of what's happened in the last 2 weeks, where God's people have been dreaming about stuff, or they're having questions about what's going on. And so they're pressing into God for answers. And we're bringing a group of dreams and prophetic intel and prophetic words together to see what he's saying from multiple data points. So it's fascinating. It's only going to get deeper. Reese Howells during World War II. I haven't read his book. I really want to read his book. I wish they had his book on Audible because I would read it then. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being a part. Thank you for being part of our extended community here on YouTube. Again, we want to do these on Fridays, and those that choose to join us in spiritual intelligence will be able to continue on and go into further depths. So again, thank you all for your time, and we'll be announcing these and doing more of these soon. So have a great night. Love you all. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.